The following is a live production of the Warchant.com Multimedia Network. Fire up the grills and turn up the volume. Welcome to Warchant GameDay, presented by Zaxby's of Tallahassee.
He is off, one man to beat, cuts it back. He landed on somebody. They're going to say touchdown.
Warchant.com's Jeff Cameron and Tom Lang bring you the latest news, updates, and analysis around the FSU program ahead of today's kickoff on Bobby Bowden Field.
I know what this game means. And if you don't get up for this one, then go somewhere else. Go do something else, because it is not for you. This is why you play.
Tallahassee Game Day is brought to you by Zaxby's, the official chicken of sports fans. Your Tallahassee Zaxby's, a proud Golden Chief booster for 17 years. Go Noles! Now live and worldwide on Warchant TV, here is Warchant Game Day.
Welcome in, Warchant Game Day. Time to get it on. Florida State and Clemson tonight as we broadcast live from Hotel Indigo, the rooftop. It's a beautiful night for a football game. If you guys are out and about making your way over to the stadium, perhaps tailgating just over yonder, make your way on over to the rooftop here at Hotel Indigo and enjoy some fellow Noles and a few Clemson fans here, as well as there is food and drink, and there is football on the deck here as we've got Tennessee up out over Alabama 21-7. That game in the first half. We'll update you on all those games later on as we get through with the go through with the broadcast. Excited about this one, Tom. This show obviously always brought to you by our friends at Zaxby's. Pre-game, post-game, no game at all. Anytime is the right time for Zaxby's platters. Just as long as you're hungry. Feed your team with your choice of traditional or buffalo fingers, boneless or traditional wings as well. If you're having trouble deciding, get the best of both worlds with a sampler platter. Don't forget that world-famous Zaxby's sauce. That's right, Zaxby's platter, satisfying your chicken craving. Order online or in the app. Your Tallahassee Zaxby's, a proud Golden Chief booster for 17 years. Go Noles. And away we go. Florida State with an opportunity tonight, if they can pull the upset, to kind of get back on track here, coming off of two losses, one to Wake and a heartbreaker last week to NC State. I would imagine tonight's audience will be electrifying, maybe carries them over the finish line if you can keep yourself in it through the first half and give yourself a reason to believe.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I woke up today with a strange feeling.
Oh, yeah?
And I don't know if it's
good.
Well, it could be. I just feel like this game is not going to be altogether close. And I don't know which way that means it's going to go. I know what the odds say it would be, but it just doesn't feel like it's going to go down the stretch like a lot of these games have for Florida State, where your heart's in your throat in the fourth quarter for the last 5 minutes, then 2 minutes, then perhaps an extra point with no time on the clock. It just doesn't have that feel today. Maybe it's because the air was let out of the balloon a little bit by the finish up at NC State, but it's a strange feeling. And one of the listeners and viewers of Warchant TV told me as we were out hanging the drape of the giant Zaxby's banner over the side of the building that it's a full moon tonight. So maybe strange things happen under the full moonlight and on Bobby Bowden Field.
Well, I think you're going to have something like that early. And if you're talking about strange things happening, well, listen, bottom line is DJ Uiagalelei has not turned the football over this year. Just the 2 interceptions. Maybe tonight he kickstarts an interception campaign for the good.
There you go.
And Florida State is able to get an early lead. I do think Florida State's going to have to play from in front. I think Florida State's going to have some good things happen early, whether that's by scheme offensively, driving against a very stingy Clemson defense early, or if it by chance, obviously, they create that turnover that we're talking about and gain some of that momentum. I think playing from behind here is a recipe for disaster against a very, very stout front.
Yeah, and you're going to have to win against bad numbers at times. You know, I'll confess, I was trying to do a full-on breakdown of Clemson's defense, and it was very hard to do for a couple of reasons. Number one, they're good. Number two, the schedule, I make it 3 reasons. Number two, the schedule's been weak. And number three, they're getting a ton of dudes back that haven't played a bunch.
That's the biggest difficulty to kind of gauge. They haven't had all the guys
and Thomas up front. But some of the things I've learned are that Clemson, just from a tendency standpoint, is blitzing less than they ever have. The plan for Sam Hartman against Wake Forest was to blitz the heck out of that front and that mesh. It didn't work. Hartman completed nearly 87% of his passes against the blitz.
Yeah, he's good.
I mean, that's an absurd number, and then you tack on pass interference on top of that. They hardly blitzed Devin Leary at all in the NC State game. As you can tell, I'm throwing out the Boston College result. They only blitzed him 7 times, and that game was in the balance through about 2.5, 3 quarters, so they had more opportunities. They learned that blitzing is not the way to go, and if you look at Jordan Travis numbers against the blitz, they're very good. So the tendency, I think, today is that you're going to be throwing into bad numbers, but you have to throw into bad numbers because even if they have a 6-man box, I don't think you're going to be able to run the ball effectively on them.
No, that's why the matchup is exceedingly difficult because of the physical mismatch of Florida State's offensive line going against a superior defensive line in Clemson. So I think that the fear here is that Clemson is able to drop 7 or 8. And
Right.
if they are able to do that, I think it's a long night. Jordan hasn't responded well when teams play coverage. Now, not many people do. I mean, to be honest with you, if you are able to get pressure with just 4 or 3, quarterbacks, all of them, are going to struggle against that look. If that's your plight that night, that your line can't block 3 or 4, you're going to have a long night. And this is why I say all week long, I think Clemson isn't going to bring a lot of pressure. I think they can get it with just their front 4.
Yeah.
And from that point forward, Jordan Travis has to make plays. By hook or by crook, I don't care. You got to make dudes miss. You got to extend plays so guys come open or sit down in a zone. You got to have guys make contested catches. You got to be able to run the football when all is broken down. He has to be a superstar tonight for Florida State to win, and he has it in him.
Yeah, he does. And this offense has enough playmakers on the outside that you have to honor the pass in a way you didn't last year.
Yes.
Like, so if this was last year's offense going against this Clemson defense, I don't know, man. You'd need miracles. You'd need muffed kicks. You need all kinds of stuff to put together a resume that says, all right, how is it that Florida State wins the football game? The good thing here is if they're running a basic RPO triple option, which is read option, then a bubble or a Jordan run, you have to honor that Johnny Wilson's on the outside. You have to honor that Micah Pittman's on the outside.
Yeah, that's just
you
a guy
can't
that
just
can do
crash
something about
down
it,
on the read option look. And that'll be the interesting thing is, can they do enough in those particular base plays to have Clemson commit more bodies closer to the line of scrimmage? If they don't, it's going to be a long night. But then the other side of it, too, is the defense can do something about it and maybe hold Clemson down for a couple of quarters. And if that's the case, then every point matters in a way that it typically doesn't in college football, because what we're seeing mostly are high-scoring games. This could be a lower-scoring game. That's probably part of the path to victory as well.
Yeah, and I'll get to the defense and what Florida State can do in a little bit, because I agree with you. I think that's the side of the ball where maybe they can make something happen and give Florida State a short field or create a turnover, something along those lines. But I would say this about the offense. I think Clemson, and if I were Clemson, I would do this, I would play an arrogant brand of football. I wouldn't respect Florida State's receivers if I'm them.
Right.
I'm hoping that's what they do, because I actually think that we have some dudes this year that we haven't had in recent memory that can make some plays. But if I'm Clemson, I'm saying show me, because I don't believe it. I haven't seen it. I haven't had to look at it up close and personal. Yeah, you did some things against Louisville and got deep, but we got guys that can cover you. So that's the way they should play it, and see if they can win that way without having to dedicate a safety or shade or anything like that.
Now, this is a crazy example. It's an exaggeration. But if you look at what Clemson did against Georgia Tech, and I get Georgia Tech is no great shakes. The offensive line's worse than ours, right? But Clemson was able to prove early on that, we can just create pressure with our front 4. They were running into, this reminds me of the Notre Dame game when we went up there in the freezing cold.
I don't want to talk about that game.
There were 5- and 6-man boxes pre-snap, to your point.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be the Clemson game plan from the word go is, maybe a 6-man box proved it to me that you can get to 2nd and 6 if we're going to be passive between the tackle box. And if Florida State can, then maybe things start to work.
Yeah.
But Florida State will have to, because, like you said, this all comes back to 13. He's got to be a stud making decisions, making quick decisions in either the read option game or if he's got an outside option to throw.
Yeah.
The decision has to be now. If you wait an extra tick, that's how bad interceptions happen with the speed that they have.
Yeah, I think this is Jordan Travis's biggest moment. This is an opportunity here. He's already made great strides. Now, obviously, these last 2 weeks have not been great, but they haven't been bad either if we're just talking about 13. But I again think that this is his moment here. If Florida State's in this game with a chance to win it, it's because, amongst other things, Jordan has played exceptionally well on the night. There's no path to victory if he's not great. And that's
on
not
offense,
always and that's not always the case, by the way. There are games where he doesn't have to be great, that Florida State's able to run the ball traditionally, set things up the way they want to, utilize, well, unfortunately, probably not playing tonight, utilize Trayshawn Ward, utilize Lawrence Toafili, Benson, those guys. They've been able to win games that way. They beat LSU that way. Jordan didn't run around against LSU. He wasn't, but I think tonight there's really little chance that you're going to run traditionally or run the way you want to from your base principles. And I think Jordan's going to have to be the reason that you have success on the ground.
Yeah, and you're correct. He's got it in him. Just look at the way he reacted to the kitchen sink that LSU threw at him.
It didn't shake him at all.
It was exotic as could be. You know, I think Clemson will play a little bit more simply.
They will.
But, I mean, they threw the kitchen sink at him with fronts, with pressures from all sides, every level of the defense, disguised, delayed blitzes, cross, whatever you want to call it. They did it. And when he had the ball in his hand after the snap, he knew immediately where to go with the football.
Yeah.
And if
he had the answers to the test.
Correct. He better look like that tonight from the word go. And it doesn't mean that you can't make a mistake in that situation. You could throw a 50-50 ball and one of your receivers drops it and they come away with an interception. That's not bad process.
Right,
Jordan. That's the other part of this whole conversation. And I know that we're going to play a clip from earlier in the week on the Jeff Hammer Show talking about this. But if a mistake happens for the right reasons, you can't get down on yourself. This is not the week to do that.
Yeah, and it'll be fun. I'm glad we're going to play that clip because we kind of examined every aspect of Jordan's game this week on the show. And I thought it was necessary because in a way, obviously you're coming to a halfway point here. You're getting to a place where we're going into a bye. The remaining 5 games, and I know we're concentrating tonight on this game, but the remaining 5 games are imminently winnable.
Yep.
And you got to get healed up. You got to get healthy. Let's hope they come out of this game tonight healed up, win or lose. Obviously, we want everybody to start to feel better here so that you can go on this run. But we were kind of assessing, Jordan was so good in the first three or 4 weeks where we looked at him in amazement. We talked about him potentially being at one point the best quarterback in this league as opposed to top 7. We were starting to talk about him as top 2, top 3. And then we talked about, how much better can he get? Because he's progressed to this point. He's starting to trust that he has time. He's believing in his receivers. And then these last 2 weeks happened. And finally some things went wrong for the first time all year long. And that's going to happen when you play good teams, when you play better defenses, when you play guys that can cover your receivers in man, when you have teams like that can get pressure and beat up your offensive line. And he didn't respond very well to it. And I'm not talking about decision-making. There's some of that too. But I'm talking about the overall demeanor of a quarterback in a game as a leader. He did not respond well to that adversity, to the frustration he felt, whether it be towards his head coach in a play call, to his fellow teammates dropping repeatedly passes that are in crucial moments. And I understand that's frustrating, but you can't show that as a quarterback, and or the mistakes that he made. None of those things did he respond well to body language-wise and temperament-wise. And so I'm certainly hoping tonight that we see a kid that has also grown up within that realm. I think it's likely because Jordan's a hard worker, and Jordan cares about the way he's perceived as a teammate. Jordan knows he's the unquestioned leader of this team. Jordan knows the progress that they've all made and how hard they've worked. So I would suspect that he'll take that step forward tonight as a leader and not kind of give off that negative body language.
Well, who else could take a step forward? The receivers. Catch the damn ball. I mean, tonight, if it's 3rd and 7 and you're beyond the sticks and you got a chance to extend a drive, you better make that catch.
Yeah.
I mean, it was critical last week. It proved to be. But this week, I mean, you're going to have to make every one of those plays. 2 drops could cost you. It took 12, it felt like, against NC State, but 2 tonight could cost you.
And remember, Tom, one of the things that the teams had to learn here, and you can be told this, but then it has to happen. When you get into the games against the better teams in this league, NC State and Clemson are amongst those, the margin for error is very, very small. You had a larger margin for error in these other games because those teams are flawed. And so they couldn't always take advantage of the opportunities you were leaving for them. But these teams in this stretch of 3 games all do take advantage of it, whether it's defensively or offensively. So tonight, this is the best team you're going to face all year long. You drop a first down on 3rd and 7, he puts a dime on you, and you don't flip field position, and you put your defense back out there against a group that is really blocking it up pretty well these days, you got a problem. So you cannot leave those opportunities on the field tonight.
This is why we love college football, and we love the emotions that impact young men from 18 to 22, or in the case of COVID eligibility, 25 years old, like so many quarterbacks in the ACC, is the night kick matters. This atmosphere matters. And I'll be honest, I wasn't sure what the atmosphere was going to be like near campus today because it felt a little flat this week. And I think that had everything to do with how we blew a 17-3 lead on the road at NC State. This should be something that you'd never forget in terms of a pregame atmosphere. I was worried that it was going to feel legit flat today. It doesn't, though. Now that we're around campus, I think people were kind of staying away, keeping it at arm's length until the week got later and later. And now here they are. And so for those of you that aren't in Tallahassee right now, looking out into the tailgate lots, it's going to be a really rowdy bunch in the stadium tonight, which I'm glad to see.
College football, one of the reasons we love it, you're alluding to it right now, is a sport that features a lot of young people that are subject to the whims of emotion. I've said it for 23 years, 24 years of being on the air. You get teams that on paper look a certain way, and then the game kicks off, and the fans get involved in atmospheres like this that are truly special. There's one going on right now in Neyland as we broadcast second quarter, 21-7 Tennessee over Alabama. Well, listen, do you think Tennessee is appreciably better than Alabama? Probably not. Maybe a little energy there, maybe a little momentum going on right there for Tennessee. So it has to be that for Florida State tonight. These fans have to help carry these moments, and we've seen it. We've watched it happen before. I thought last year against Miami, for a big chunk of that game, the crowd kind of pulled Florida State along in these moments. Those guys did not want to let anybody down. And you feel that, right? In addition to loving your teammates and your coaches, you love this university. You love being here. You love being amongst these students. And they get loud. And it affects you. You know, that extra effort, that shot you're willing to take on a night like this could make all the difference in the world. We're going to take a quick break. Before we do, I'll give you a quick update around the top 25 for those that are just listening.
It's my favorite part of the show.
You get caught up on the day.
Caught up on the scores.
All right. Well, obviously in the top 25 tonight, number 4 Clemson against Florida State. But in the games that are going on right now, Georgia leads Vanderbilt 21-0. They're not having a problem with Vandy. Didn't think they would be. The aforementioned Tennessee Volunteers, number 6 in the land, 21. Alabama, number 3, 7. Oklahoma State is an impressive football team that does things very, very quietly, and they currently lead a good TCU team 17-7 in that one, son.
Is that the second quarter?
That is the second quarter.
Wow. All the talk this week was about TCU dropping 45-50 on them. Wow.
Oklahoma State's a nice team. We just got done talking about NC State, who unfortunately rallied to beat us last week. They've got all of 3 points through 2 quarters against Syracuse. They trail 10-3 against the Cuse, who've been a nice surprise this year. And from there, by the way, very quietly, James Madison is in the top 25. It's 7-0. They lead Georgia Southern. Earlier today, Ole Miss beat Auburn 48-34 in a game that featured the two teams combining for well over 700 yards of rushing. It was a rushing. It was a weird game to watch.
There's not enough clock to do that.
Speaking of rushing, Michigan pounded the ball against Penn State between the tackles all afternoon. They had 2 separate running backs with well over 100 yards. They smoke the Nittany Lions 41-17 today in a battle of 2 top 10 teams. That's a bad look for Coach Franklin, who's already got an awful record on the road against ranked teams. So let's just add to it. Oklahoma did bounce back. They beat Kansas by 10, 52-42. I think you had 9. Sorry about that, Tom. Texas and Iowa State. It's a tough day at the office. Texas wins 24-21 over Iowa State, and it was a very close game.
That felt very much like a Cyclones play.
Yeah. It was a good game to watch, too. It's very physical. Bijan Robinson was great in that game for Texas. And finally, Illinois keeps winning, guys. 26-14 over Minnesota. The Illini beat them.
They've got the leading rusher in the country.
26-14. They ran the ball again today, so they are now 6-1 and got a shot in the Big Ten. This is crazy to watch. Okay. That's your look around the top 25. It's Warchant GameDay. We're live from Hotel Indigo, brought to you by Zaxby's. We'll be back in a moment. Our own Irashfel, as I like to say, will join us on the program. Stay tuned, everybody.
Something big, something huge is taking over the world of chicken sandwiches. Zaxby's new signature sandwich with Zax sauce or new spicy Zax sauce. Because the chicken sandwich war ain't over yet. The new signature sandwich, it's taking over. And it's only at Zaxby's.
Warchant.com has been the definitive home of all things FSU sports for over 20 years and is now part of On3, the next generation network. Warchant.com has the most experienced, tenured, and largest staff on the Florida State sports beat and now features innovative resources, including an NIL database that projects player value and a truly aggregated composite recruiting ranking system that will set the bar in the industry.
There are no words to describe the perfect pairing of Zaxby's hand-breaded fingers and our 12 delectable sauces. But there is a sound, and that sound is The Zaxby's Chicken Finger Plate with endless sauce abilities. Only at Zaxby's.
Jesus. Warchant GameDay continues from Hotel Indigo. We're up on the roof overlooking the tailgate lots, which are beginning to fill nicely. Should be an incredible atmosphere inside Doak Campbell Stadium. If you're out and about, wandering around, wanting to watch football, have a cold beer or delicious food, there's buffet inside as well. Up top here at Hotel Indigo. Feel free to swing on by. It's free to everybody to come on up here, and then just a little buffet fee, and you're good to go. How you doing, Ira?
Good, man. How you doing?
I'm good. We got our own Ira Chaffel in here right now. You guys know Ira. Just got done mentioning that he'd be here, and I want you are perhaps the most optimistic of the group.
I am
today. Let's go. Bring that optimism, buddy, because I'm not sharing it.
But I was thinking earlier today, Jeff, you weren't all that optimistic for the LSU game either. So I just figured I'd throw that out there.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, there's definitely a physical advantage on the line of scrimmage for Clemson. My thing is, I just don't think when you look at Clemson, other than Louisiana Tech, they really haven't blown anybody out. All of those games have gone well into the third quarter. Most of them have gone into the fourth quarter. And I think, Florida State's better than a lot of those teams. So I think it's going to be a really good game. And, we'll see if Florida State can play better in those big moments, because that's what's killed them these last couple of weeks. I just think they haven't played well in big moments.
Who are you? Well, I guess the angle I would ask you about, what are you most interested to see early? What's going to be an indicator for you? Because you're already conceding what a lot of us are conceding, and that is that Florida State's going to have to kind of trick their way on offense because we don't think they can block them traditionally. So this is a group, Alex Atkins and Mike Norvell have done a good job of finding a way to run the ball even when they haven't had advantages on the offensive line. I'm talking about all of last year. But what's an indicator for you that they're going to be able to hang in there and make this a game into the second half and give themselves a chance to ride the wave of momentum from this crowd and electric atmosphere and all that and maybe steal a win here? What are you going to be looking for early?
The biggest thing to me is the receivers making plays. I just think that killed them in the first half last week. And I just think that those guys have got to make plays. And I think we'll know it pretty early on because I think it's contagious. Once one or two guys drop passes, it seems like all the weight of the world is on them. Yeah. I think if you see Johnny Wilson make a play early, if you see Malik McClain and some of those guys make plays early, I think that'll give them confidence. It's going to be a battle all day. It's not like if they make a few plays, it's going to be easy. But at least that would kind of calm, I think, Clemson down. And Tom did a piece that's on the website right now that I think was really good talking about Clemson when they don't have to blitz, how much better they are on defense. Well, you got to make it to where they have to blitz, where they feel like they have to come after Jordan Travis. They can't let him make good decisions and let the receivers make plays. So to me, that's going to be the first step, is making some plays with the passing game and forcing Clemson to come after you.
You were at every practice this week that we're allowed to be at. What was your takeaway from practice this week? I know that now that it's actually game day, we're not giving up secrets here. I don't think Clemson's listening to the pregame show here.
It might be.
But I would ask you, what was your takeaway from practice this week? Because the reason is, for people that don't know, obviously Florida State's coming on the heels of two tough losses. That one last week really ate at him. I could tell. Mike Norvell looked ashen after the game, is the way I think Corey Clark said it. And you could see it in his face. He felt pretty devastated for him because he knows they should have won that game. Sometimes guys don't respond well to that. Kind of curious what your takeaway was from practice.
I thought early in Tuesday's practice, that's kind of how it felt. It felt like this was a team that had been through two really tough games and was a little sluggish. They came on later in that practice. I thought Jordan looked much better as that practice went on. I thought the offenses overall played much better as that practice went on. I thought Wednesday was fine. Is it as spry as it was a month ago? No, but I'm guessing most practices are as spry as they were a month ago. So, and then the other thing is we don't get to see later in the week. So we'll see. That's when they put in some of the other things that they're going to do from a game plan standpoint. But I'll be surprised, man. I just think of where all they've come, what all they've done as a program in a game with Clemson coming to town, that they don't come out and play pretty sharp.
Well, and sometimes the thing you need to get over a tough loss is an opponent like this that's in the top 10 that they know if you don't play well, you can get embarrassed. Right. And so no elite athlete, especially anybody that's good enough to get a scholarship to come play at Florida State, wants to get humiliated. And they know from watching film, too, the eye in the sky didn't lie. They see it. They know those guys can play. Clemson's healthy. So I think that obviously their full attention and intensity will be in place here for this football game. Defensively, I think this is an interesting battle for Florida State, too, because this could be a verse game. I think they have to have a way to disrupt DJ, who's played better this year than he did a year ago. He's also very patient in the pocket. If you don't get to him, he'll hold the ball and wait for a guy to come open. So I'm kind of curious, do you think that they decide to ratchet up pressure, or do you think they just try to win with their front four in the hopes that Jared Verse can wreak havoc or that they can get pressure in the interior?
I do think they'll be able to get pressure with their front four. I mean, Clemson's offensive line has not been great, particularly they have a freshman starting at right tackle that I think Patrick Payton, what we've seen out of him the last couple of weeks, is a good sign. Maybe he can get some pressure. Verse should be unleashed You would think he'll have a better opportunity. You think back in that game against NC State when Devin Leary goes down, you basically take Jared Verse out of the game as a pass rusher because they're never going to pass anymore. I think that he'll get opportunities. That pass rush will get opportunities. If they can't get there with the front four, then they're going to have to blitz. But I go back to the Miami game last year, how good Tyler Van Dyke looked before he came into this stadium and how that crowd and that defense affected him. That's what I think is going to have to happen. Now, if it doesn't happen, if he's calm and collected, Florida State's going to have a tough time.
To me, I think that your superstars have to be superstars in moments like this. And what you're describing is Jared Verse has elevated himself into a position where there's talk of him going into the NFL draft and possibly being a first rounder this year. Jordan Travis has taken a huge step forward as a quarterback. These two guys on opposite sides of the ball have to be superstars tonight. Do you envision a game plan that involves Jordan running the ball a lot more tonight?
I would think so, but it'll be interesting to see how long he can do that because those guys are different. It's one thing to run the ball against Boston College. It's one thing to run the ball against Wake Forest or anybody you want to, but those guys are different. I mean, it's all NFL dudes that are going to be looking to inflict pain because he's the key to the offense. So that's going to be a challenge. But, man, I think more of the offense is going to be getting the ball out of his hands quickly. Yeah. And those guys have to make plays. I mean, this is their opportunity. Johnny Wilson wants to play in the NFL. Micah Pittman wants to play in the NFL. Those guys, this is your chance. You need to make plays on this game with Kirk Herbstreit and Chris Fowler calling the game on ABC. If you're not going to do it now, when are you going to do it?
Well, and the quick game is going to be a big part of it. I'm glad you touched on that. This is a chance, too. They are so unselfish. This is one of the things that's so likable about this group is that they do things for one another. They do it every day at practice, and they do it in games. And I'm talking about blocking. The quick game is all about blocking. Your other receivers have to want to block for you in that situation. And obviously Clemson will come crashing downhill. I'm sure they're aware that that's part of the game plan as well. But if you've got a Johnny Wilson out there, 6'7", with arms like that and strong, leading the way, you could pop something big there and get this crowd into it. And all of a sudden you've got a little something. And then there are plays that you run off of that all of a sudden now you've established something as your base. And I agree with you. I think that is probably going to be the base. How aggressive do you think Mike Norvell is tonight? And this is always a great question because we never know with him. I mean, he is kind of all over the map. A lot of times he says he's leaning on the analytics. Sometimes I'm not so sure about that. But we don't have a consistency from a kicker in this situation. Where are you on the go for it?
Where's he going for
What's the margin? Where are we at?
I think you can be kind of aggressive because, again, I don't love Clemson's offense. And I think that, if you can, as long as it's not your own 35.
Well, right. Yes, yeah.
But I think if you're past the 50 or the 45, I think you can have the right to be aggressive. I think this Florida State's defense at home will have a chance to keep them out of the end zone. But I don't think he'll be reckless, but I do think he'll be aggressive. You're only going to get so many opportunities. Again, if you're past midfield, man, you got to feel really good about your situation because if you're starting at the 15 or the 20, it's going to be a tough road.
Yeah, I think it's a game of big plays. If Florida State is going to, what do you think the race is to? If we talk about a number, we know what Vegas put the number at. I'm kind of curious what you think the number is that Florida State has to arrive at to have a shot at winning the game.
I think 27-28. I'm not, I've seen, I know some people, I think you might have had Clemson over 30. I would be really disappointed unless Florida State's offense just gives them the ball.
Yeah.
I would look at Adam Fuller and say, man, you can't be giving up 30-plus points at home to that offense. So to me, I think 27-28 gives them a good chance to win it.
Yeah, and the way I looked at it was I did think that the offense might give Clemson a couple of short fields, and I really hope I'm wrong on all of this. I would like to come on here on Monday and say, hey, man, I got it all wrong. Ira had it right, and we'd celebrate. You are always on the show on Monday, so we can let you gloat there. I'd be happy to do it. At the end of the day, you still like Florida State as we sit here right now?
I do, man. I do. But I really think we're going to know early. If the offense isn't moving, the offense has to make some plays to get the fans into it. That was part of that game against Miami last year was I really felt like the offense the team got off to a pretty good start, and that rattled Van Dyke and that Miami team. You need to give the crowd a reason to be in, especially after two straight losses. If this game is kind of ugly, or even if it's low scoring early, I think that could take some of the crowd out of it. I want to see the crowd get into it. I think they have to make some plays early in this game.
The irony, too, though, is that if it is ugly and you uglify it, as we say, that might be your best path to winning, like a 20-17 game. So it's so weird. On the one hand, you want the crowd to get into it. On the other, if it stays low scoring, you're in it late. That's probably your best bet. Always appreciate it, brother. Go and cover the game for us. That's Ira Chaffel. He's the best in the business. Our main man, managing editor, Ira Chaffel, joining us on Warchant GameDay. More of that forthcoming when we come back to Hotel Indigo. Again, we're on the roof. Swing on by, if you will. Get you some food. Get you cold beer and watch a little football. I believe Tennessee's still leading Alabama. That is a good thing. Don't forget, Your neighborhood Zaxby's the best in the business as well. Pregame, postgame, no game at all. Anytime is the right time for Zaxby's platters, just as long as you're hungry. You can order online as well as the app. Tallahassee Zaxby's, a proud Golden Chief booster for 17 years. Go Noles.
Something big, something huge is taking over the world of chicken sandwiches. Zaxby's new signature sandwich with Zax sauce or new spicy Zax sauce. Because the chicken sandwich war ain't over yet. The new signature sandwich, it's taking over. And it's only at Zaxby's.
Warchant.com has been the definitive home of all things FSU sports for over 20 years and is now part of On3, the next generation network. Warchant.com has the most experienced, tenured, and largest staff on the Florida State sports beat and now features innovative resources, including an NIL database that projects player value and a truly aggregated composite recruiting ranking system that will set the bar in the industry.
There are no words to describe the perfect pairing of Zaxby's hand-breaded fingers and our 12 delectable sauces. But there is a sound, and that sound is The Zaxby's chicken finger plate with endless sauce abilities. Only at Zaxby's.
And we're back. Zaxby's Warchant GameDay.
You just wanted to do that. You just wanted to do that.
And we're back. It's a fun thing to say.
We are back at Hotel Indigo. Brief breaks on the pregame show. I forget how brief the breaks are. But hey, listen, earlier this week, and Ira and I were just talking about, Tom, earlier this week, we talked about the importance of Jordan Travis having a great game tonight and what a great opportunity it is for him. I like that kid a lot. I'm removing whatever criticisms or compliments we may have for Jordan Travis. I just like how hard he's worked to get where he is.
Yep.
I think he's earned the right for us to celebrate his successes. That's not always true. There are guys that you're just kind of indifferent about, but he's not one of them. So I really wanted to play well tonight. But in order to do so, he's got to handle the moment. He's got to handle his emotions.
Yeah, and he's been a different dude in general this year with that, the good and the bad. Think about when he got hit in the face delivering the strike to Pokey Wilson in the Superdome.
Yeah.
And how he starts immediately talking smack to LSU, the sideline, his own sideline, firing him up. Last year, he was more statesman-like. Not to use a Florida State pun, but that's what he looked like. It was more stoic.
Yeah. Well, I don't think he knew.
Next drive, next play. I mean, he never looked flustered. He almost looked casual in certain moments where you say, man, he's unflappable. He just had four dudes. Our offensive line turned four dudes loose in the play. He had to bail and throw it out. And he'd be like, ho-hum, 2nd and 10. Okay, let's get it together. And this year, you've seen the roller coaster. And I think that comes with accomplishment. And also,
expectation.
Being involved in the game as a quarterback, like a real one. It's a fundamentally different dude in terms of what he can do post-snap. If you're a defensive coordinator, you got to prepare for him completely differently than you did last year.
He attacks the middle of the field in a way that he never did a year ago, so yeah.
And with that, too, he carries himself a little bit differently this year, and we're finding that out on both sides of the coin.
Well, I think you hit it on the head when you talked about part of that being, accomplishment. But I also think that with accomplishment, we well know comes expectation.
Yeah.
And it's the first time maybe in his entire career that he's ever had to feel the weight of expectations. And I don't want to overstate what that is because I think people do, generally speaking. I think we tend to project our own feelings onto other people.
Sure, yeah.
So if we have expectations, we think he has expectations that are greater than ours, and that how's he handling that? Well, he may not be thinking about it the way we're thinking about it. He may be thinking about what his assignments are, what his keys are, what his reads are. He's just thinking about the next play. I'm not saying he's impervious to pressure or anything like that. I'm just saying I think Jordan understands his role with this team. He understands elevated expectation. He gets frustrated when things aren't working out the way that they should be, especially because through 4 games, he had immense success. So, with all of that, it comes crashing down pretty suddenly when you lose a game like we did to Wake, or you turn around and you lose a game and you blow a 17-3 lead and you have almost zero success in the second half moving the football, a lot of 3 and outs. You could understand how that would eventually catch up to you. I just hope that he and Mike were able to kind of talk through this. And, a lot of times when you're the play caller, Mike Norvell, that is, when you're the play caller in game, obviously he and Alex Adkins put the game plan together, and Alex Adkins works very closely with them all week long on this. He is the OC after all. But game day, Mike's calling plays. I think most of the best play caller quarterback duos have open lines of communication, and that includes being able to yell at one another when they're frustrated. That includes being able to put it behind you after you get into a little bit of a dust-up. That includes being able to close the door and have it out, but behind closed doors and say, hey, look, I didn't appreciate the way that we were playing conservative or whatever your complaint might be. Because I think he had some of that last week. He just can't show it on the field because then you rattle your teammates.
Right, and that dynamic that we saw for a lot of Jimbo's tenure, and I get that people have fatigue with that name, but he was a quarterback's coach and a quarterback dude. And so as the offensive coordinator and the play caller, that the interactions he had with Christian Ponder looked one way, E.J. Manuel another, Jameis Winston, unique and quite another.
Very unique, yeah.
And in the case of Jameis Winston, Jameis would correct Jimbo at times.
Only guy ever, I think.
Only guy ever he'd be allowed to do that.
Because he got it right.
Because he got it right. But I think that's the beautiful dynamic between a coach, at least a play caller, and his quarterback, is that you can make each other better. It's not a one-way street.
You better.
But it's not, I develop you, you're going to be better because of what I do for you.
Right.
Anybody who's ever taught anybody else or mentored anybody else, either if you're a teacher as your day job or whatever, you got somebody you ushered through a tough time, they teach you about yourself too. And they make you see situations differently because of the relationship you had with them. I'm not trying to get all in the feels today, but that is how
dynamic.
It's dynamic. It can't be dynamic if it's not two ways. That's the whole point of it. So hopefully you see more moments like that on the sideline tonight where both of them are smiling at each other, high-fiving and saying, now that is how we do it.
Yeah, it'll be an intense game. I don't know how many smiles there'll be until it's very late if Florida State has the lead or something like that. But I do know this week had to have been a very productive one for those two to be able to try to come up with a game plan this week to take advantage of a Clemson defense that is very good. It'll be the best defense they face all season long. Really, it's not even close when you consider that the NFL projects a number of those guys, including both starting linebackers and the entirety of the defensive line, to be NFL guys. So you're facing a group here that you're at a disadvantage against. Doesn't mean you can't scheme something up. Doesn't mean you can't offset some of those disadvantages and play to a strength. But it does mean that it's an uphill climb.
A quick point before throwing to that particular conversation that we had. Florida Man in Texas contributes to the program.
Thank you so much, as always.
And he says, what is the host's record in this particular wardrobe that we have on today?
God.
What I can tell you, Florida Man in Texas, is that for the Wake Forest game, I broke out the 90s starter gear, which I'm not sporting today. For the other home games, and also the stuff that we did out in Louisiana, I had this gear on. So the record's better with this. Thank you, Florida Man in Texas.
I've not worn this shirt this year.
Oh, all right.
First one.
Maybe
I broke out a whole new, and I've had it. It's been in the closet. I haven't worn it yet this year. I thought, okay, a little something different. Let's shake it up. We've lost 2 weeks in a row. I didn't wear this hat on the show, I've worn it in studio, but I tried to shake things up a little bit with the gray, with the obviously Renegade. So
you feel neutral about today, don't you?
I feel neutral. I didn't know there wasn't a shirt I could have donned that was going to guarantee us victory. Well, because if there had been, I would have it on. I assure you.
But how superstitious are you? If they do pull it off tonight,
they're going to demand that I wear this next game.
Will you?
Sure.
All right.
Yeah. No, I will absolutely do that. If it makes others feel better, Tom, I'm all about it.
That's exactly how you do everything in your life.
That's what it is. It's about other people. It's not about me. So listen, let's go circle back. We talked about Jordan this week, the importance of this game, the magnitude of the moment, everything from his level of play to his demeanor. This is a clip from, I think this was Thursday or Friday that we had this lengthy conversation. We wanted to bring it to the table today, once again expounding on Jordan Travis's role tonight. Big night for that young man. All right, so we were talking about Jordan Travis before the break, not specifically Jordan Travis. It was a larger point we were making about where Florida State's at, where I think they can go, and maybe what this game will look like. But towards the end, we mentioned his demeanor, his body language, and the frustration that he exuded in the last football game, which I do think suggests more than just a play breaking down or a receiver dropping a pass or a play call. I think that is indicative of a player that has very lofty expectations and is failing to meet them, whether he is, or his teammates are, his coach, whatever it might be. And that's good. I want my quarterback to believe that they can be capable of really consistent elite level play. And I don't think that Jordan Travis believed he was that player a year ago at all. But I think he thinks he's that player now. Now, I don't really care to have an argument about where I would place him on that list of elite to average to wherever. It doesn't really matter. I'm only talking about what he thinks. And I want my quarterback, no matter if he sucks. I want my quarterback, and he doesn't suck. But no matter what, I want my quarterback to believe that, because I think at that position, you'd better believe that. You better think you're capable. You better hold yourself to a very, very lofty standard. So I get being frustrated by not meeting that standard or having a series, or in this case, a half, in which it falls to pieces and the angst you feel reaches a place of boiling over. But I hope that in addition to sitting down and talking about decisions, in addition to sitting down and talking about, what went right, what went wrong, as you do after every game with every position group, as well as the team, you do this is every game. I hope there was a conversation about why it's important, and it has nothing to do with Mike Norvell with my feelings, because Mike's tough and he played ball and he gets it. Like, I don't think Mike's feelings are hurt when somebody yells at him, or his player kind of is frustrated and walks away. I don't think his feelings are hurt. I think he's trying to communicate, and he's like, hey man, we need to talk. But Jordan has to understand who's watching, and that's his teammates. Doesn't matter that you and I are watching. It's not a good look, doesn't really endear you to the fans, but that doesn't matter. It really more matters that your teammates see that frustration and they look to you as an unquestioned leader, unshakable, more importantly, unshakable, locked in, ready to go back to battle when something goes poorly, not hold on to those frustrations and failures. And it's the first time we've ever seen from him back-to-back games where things carried over, where a poor decision, a poor result carried over to the next series, carried over to the sidelines. That can't happen. That has to stop. You can't be that guy and expect to have your teammates feel about you the way they need to feel about you in the biggest moments of a football game. They got to believe 100% that you're moving on and you're capable and you're not angry with them, angry with a play call, angry with a result. It can't be. It has to be play the next play. It has to be what's up next game, next quarter, next play. Has to be. Can never be what just occurred. There's a moment in time, maybe you throw that interception and the guy's returning it and whatever, you yell out F and the camera catches you. All right, whatever, man. And that's fine. But that has to be the end of it. And I just hope that, like you said, is not a burgeoning problem for him.
No, I think it's a lesson that's novel to him because a lot of this is brand new territory. You can be a pocket passer in high school, and that's fine. But there are going to be so many games when you're as gifted athletically as Jordan is. And I'm not just talking about with his legs. I'm saying as an athlete, throwing the ball, running with the football in your hands, that it doesn't matter. You could make the wrong decision and get the right results on the scoreboard. Because that's high school football. For most of the guys that come to Florida State, that's high school football. You could have the wrong process, but have a great result, and nobody's going to be the wiser.
Because you're the better athlete.
And they're not going to talk to you because you're the stud on the team. Mm-hmm. But now he is having to deal with quarterback-specific problems at a completely different level, where there are dudes that can do something about it. Even if you have the right process, you could have the wrong result. And in this case, he had been failed by his teammates time and time again, to the point where when he finally made a mistake, it's just the world is on fire. What's interesting to me, though, is he has some experience with being let down consistently on the field. I'm not talking about by coaches because he got that too.
Oh, good God. Last year, he was let down on every one-on-one matchup that they had.
And on the offensive line.
Yeah.
And you never saw him lose it on the 5 up front. He always praised them. He praised them in the offseason. He praised his receivers. He did everything that he was supposed to do. So I think if you're looking at the total resume of when he is let down, even with a coaching staff, Willie or Petrino before him, the dude still takes the high road most of the time. I just think what's happening is the world has changed for him in the last 6 weeks rapidly. He's gone from a dude that this fan base doesn't trust to this guy might be the top quarterback in the conference. That's the way he was playing through 3-4 games. You go, oh my God, he's not a top 5 quarterback in the conference. He's top 3. He might be the best player, the most dangerous one week in and week out in the conference, to now you're coming back to earth a little bit. That's a lot to process. All the while you're learning lessons as a quarterback that are novel to you about not showing up teammates or not pouting on the sideline. It's just the man's had a lot happen in the last 45 days.
And this should be the game that we don't see it again.
I agree. You've got to learn from it. That doesn't mean that you can't continue down the road.
No, I mean, it's done. You've had 2 games worth of it. Let's go. Enough. Play within yourself. The expectations are what they are. This is what happens when you start winning games. This is part and parcel to the successes that come with hard work and improvement of a roster. So if he's going to be the player that he thinks he is and should be, and has been confident enough to be, to be up to this point, then this is what comes with it. I mean, this is, when you don't hear people criticizing body language or decisions or results, it's because they don't think you can play. So now you're going to hear it every week because people know you can play.
Yeah, nobody cares if Baker Mayfield looks and pouts on the sideline for Carolina.
That's every week. They suck. He's not any good. He's about to be out of the league.
Right.
Nobody cares. It's over. Yeah, I mean, that's right. It's ending quickly for that guy. But, I mean, for Jordan, his best days are in front of him. I really believe that. And he's got an opportunity. He's never going to be, Jameis Winston or Trevor Lawrence or any of the elite. He's not 6'5", 230 with a howitzer, but he's good enough to be a good college quarterback. So,
and he's shown that his capacity to learn and develop.
Oh, and the work ethic and the commitment and the ability to endure a lot of adversity. These are really admirable qualities and things that I've liked about him and why I've rooted for him, even when I was critical of some of his play last year, which was, there was a lot to criticize, but he is a much better player now, which is why we have expectations.
And I give a damn more about the now period versus the future. However, with that said, you just see all of these things that are happening for him and these developments, and these transformations. And I think for a moment, well, if he came back, and I know there's speculation about whether he does or he doesn't and whatever, but if he came back next year, you talk about a grizzled vet who now has seen it and done it in every way that you can from the position. You wouldn't see that next year from him if he came back.
When you become the guy as a quarterback like he is now, and you do have to make plays and carry your team, and you do have to lead as the unquestioned leader, because by definition you are as a quarterback. There's no getting out from that. You can't not be a great leader at quarterback. Man, that is a lot to adjust to, but it's also everything he's ever wanted. And that is the better way to look at it. Who cares about the external expectations? Find yours. Those expectations you've always had of yourself led you to this moment.
I agree, and I think that's eventually where this is going. But listen to Jordan when he tells you that the external factors have affected him in the past. They affected his confidence. He said on multiple occasions that I listened to people saying what I couldn't do, and I took that to heart. And in a way, this is not his word, but in a way, it's self-fulfilling. That's what he's telling us last year when he revealed that he almost gave up the game of football, if not for Kenny Dillingham and Mike Norvell. And then this year when he said, I'm as confident as I've been since high school. And it's because I'm not listening to that noise anymore. You just wonder, though, he's telling you his human nature is to allow the outside to affect what's going on right now at times.
Yeah, it's a problem
that's
for
the
him.
good. That's the good and the bad.
Yeah.
But he learned how to flush it for the bad, and this is a brand new lesson for the good. And then here you go. Somewhere in the middle, it will land. And the track record largely says it won't be a problem much longer. But it has been an issue.
The fact that it's affected him in the past worries you. It doesn't mean he's incapable, but it does worry you because a lot of the guys that deflect that early on those are also indicators that that's never going to be a problem for them.
Yeah. Yeah. What it does for me, though, is it gives me more hope for him because he's faced something that those quarterbacks have never faced before, which is the demons. And he found a way to go from a place where he's questioning whether he ever wants to play the sport again, sport that he loves, to being the host of a football program such as Florida State's and being one of the most improved players in the country year over year. I mean, it's not just us that are documenting this. I've heard on countless shows, television and radio and satellite alike, where they're saying that's a different dude this year. It's not just that their offensive line's better.
Yeah.
That dude is as improved as anybody I've seen on film year over year. So how is it that you've gone from a place to where you're listening to the critics and it's affecting you to you flushed it and you've gone to a place that you knew that you could go, but a lot of people doubted? That means that you faced the hard part of it. And a lot of those guys, they don't. Remember when Jameis the Saturday against UF after he had the hearing here at Florida State, the special
First
hearing.
time he was ever affected by anything.
And you could see it on his face. Even that week when he was coming in and out of the facility, they had the shots of it because, of course, the national media was here. You saw it for the first time. The outside world had made its way into the space between his ears. And he looked like ass that Saturday.
Yeah, well, he was broken in that week, but it's crazy because it took everything under the sun to get to that point.
That's what
crazy.
I'm saying.
Like Jordan's not facing that.
It took, what was that, 11 months? 13 months?
He quite literally didn't know what was being said, I found out later on.
Right.
Which is really part of the answer.
It is.
It is so much easier to say this than to live it as a young man now. I mean, I get it. I'm no longer young. I marvel at the expectations, external pressures that kids feel today. And it is easy for me to say, well, just stay off social media. It's stupid anyhow. It's not the real world anyhow. Because I know that's true. They don't. They've been immersed in it and lived in it since they were alive, since they've been born. They know no other thing than that world. And you just hope that somebody's able to, somewhere along the way, yank that stupid electronic device out of their hand and say, it's not real. That's not real. Those people are going to say what they're going to say, and there's nothing you can do about that. But that relationship you have with your parents, your coaches, your teammates, your girlfriend, whatever, that's real. Care about what they think. Care about the people that you love in your life and what they think, but nothing else. And go play ball, man. Go ball. Everybody's got a word about that play, about that game, but you just don't know. You never know if somebody has that. I know that Florida State does a very good job, and I'm not trying to overextend this into something much greater than it really is. Jordan will be fine. I'm not worried about Jordan Travis. I'm not. It's worth monitoring. It's why we're talking about it. We just saw it happen 2 weeks in a row. It's worth noting because we haven't seen it before. But and Florida State does I know this for a fact, Florida State does a very good job, most universities do these days, of providing opportunities to learn how to deal with expectations and the pressures that come, mental health, basically, how to, use these tools that you're given to deal with whatever's going on in your life, right? Everybody could use that. That's everybody. That's true of therapy in general, is give the tools you need to deal with any situation that you're going through. I think he's in an incredible place of support. I mean, his head coach rode with him after everything that was going on. And in terms of the failures and the losses, and that's a guy that was pretty well unwavering, at least in terms of believing that Mike sometimes to a fault stands by everybody on that football team. It's why they love him. I'm not saying he should have ever turned his back on Jordan. I'm saying that, Fitzgerald, all these guys, right? No, going to stick with him, Well, that's good. That's good. I want my head coach to do that. He's got a lot of tools to help him deal with the pressures of now being a good quarterback. It's just as simple as that. Let's hope that we begin to see it this week. I don't think they'll lose this game, or they could win the game because of him, but I don't think they'll lose the game because of him. I think they'll lose if they lose for different reasons.
Something big, something huge is taking over the world of chicken sandwiches. Zaxby's new signature sandwich with Zax sauce or new spicy Zax sauce. Because the chicken sandwich war ain't over yet. The new signature sandwich, it's taking over. And it's only at Zaxby's.
Warchant.com has been the definitive home of all things FSU sports for over 20 years and is now part of On3, the next generation network. Warchant.com has the most experienced, tenured, and largest staff on the Florida State sports beat and now features innovative resources, including an NIL database that projects player value and a truly aggregated composite recruiting ranking system that will set the bar in the industry.
There are no words to describe the perfect pairing of Zaxby's hand-breaded fingers and our 12 delectable sauces. But there is a sound, and that sound is The Zaxby's Chicken Finger Plate with endless sauce abilities. Only at Zaxby's.
Warchant GameDay continues. Florida State Clemson tonight. We are broadcasting from Hotel Indigo. Rooftop, beautiful, beautiful view. Sun starting to kind of go down here. We got the stadium in the background. Tailgate lots are filled up now, and everybody's very excited for the matchup. Another reminder, by the way, that seems like everybody's got a chicken sandwich these days. You should try the one at Zaxby's. It's really good, towering above all others in size and deliciousness, which is a fun word to say. Zaxby's signature sandwich. Tallahassee Zaxby is a proud Golden Chief booster for 17 years. Go Noles. We'll get prize picks in a minute here, Tom. I did do one for our game.
To answer a question from William Flynn, who is saying, any updates on the tailgating situation? Looking down there,
looking healthy.
It's quite healthy.
Yeah.
What do they say in Meet the Parents? Strong to quite strong?
Yeah, it's filled.
Yeah.
It's good. This is going to be a great atmosphere.
The IM lots have been a good barometer for us. We were really thrilled to see what happened with Duquesne, the opener, as it got closer to kickoff. That was a late arriving tailgate crowd, but it got packed out for that particular game. This one is already, as you might imagine, William and others who are in the chat, this one looks like it's going to be a really good crowd and a walk-up crowd, I guess, too, to a degree. As of this morning, I was watching some clips of Clemson's defense. That's the kind of nerd I am. I wake up on a Saturday.
We have a job to do, Tom. That's all right.
But, I'm watching Clemson, Georgia Tech around 9:30 this morning just to see if there's anything against a mobile quarterback that they did differently. That's the one they've seen in Jeff Sims. And there were still ads on the bottom that said, buy tickets tonight for tonight's game.
My guess is that walk-up crowd will be strong. Again, kind of shot ourselves in the foot last week with that collapse against NC State. I can only imagine what this would have been had they been able to hold on and win that football game. But I do think that this will end up being something very, very close to a sellout, if it's not already a sellout at this point, because, yes, the walk-up will be very strong. I had people reaching out to me this morning trying to buy tickets. They were having a difficult time. So,
oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
So I
like hearing that.
That is a real good sign. And that was fun, our conversation there. We hope you liked that about Jordan Travis. We talked a lot about him this week, more than we have at any point since the season began. In the preseason, obviously, there was a lot of talk about that and the steps that he had to take. But once he proved it against LSU, kind of took a step back and just thought, you know what, I feel like we could just set that and look at other aspects of the team. And now we had to revisit that conversation because I do think that there's a combination of things going on there that haven't been all great lately. Let's hope he has a great game tonight. But it's going to be a tough ask against this defense.
Yeah, independent of where you play the game. And, of course, you like being home for night kicks like this to have Saturday nights at Doak, and it makes a difference. Still, that's a lot of pressure against that group, that defense that nobody really has seen yet. Nobody in the country, because of all the players that Clemson gets back tonight. You're talking safeties, multiple safeties, a star cornerback, and 2 defensive linemen that are all-world. Brian Brzee in the interior is an excellent player. He's been in and out of their lineup. But then Xavier Thomas last week against Boston College, the rush end, 6 snaps against the Eagles.
2 sacks.
2 sacks.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Here's what I'll tell you. The matchup, that last one is the one that I would ask fans to pay close attention to early because he's going to be lined up against Turpentine.
Yeah.
And specifically, he'll be lined up against Jazz all night long. And Jazz blocks straight ahead, fine, but he lacks the foot speed and the footwork and the quickness to deal with speed and strength off the edge. And that is a matchup that I'm deeply concerned about. I think that Florida State's going to have to do something to help Jazz out tonight, whether that's a tight end, whether that's chipping with a back. They're going to have to do something. If Benson's in there, he can give him a shot to the ribs, something along those lines, because I don't think he can block him.
The problem is that your tight end options blocking wise are not that great
but
either.
It's still another man, and you create another gap, and greater distance.
This is not the game where you want to play unbalanced with 6 offensive linemen,
Right.
but I almost would want to help out what's going on the right side. It's amazing. The first half of last season, we talked about what Jordan Wilson, the transfer from UCLA, was not. By the end of the year, he was
tale of two players. It was weird.
And that's a dude quietly we haven't brought up this year, but that's something that is missing this year versus last. This offense is way more dynamic than it was last year. But you could use a group like that, a tight end group that can make those blocks, that's agile enough to get from point A to point B like we ask in this offense. This offense would have, I'm no short of 6 to 7 more explosive plays with just the things that they've run. If you just could get a block from 87 or 85 or 45, you name the player, they have not been that great protecting at that particular position. So if they're throwing an extra body over there, I almost hope it's a running back that just lights up defensive. Yeah. Well, whoever it is, either of the rush ends are good. Whoever it's going to be, Leonard Fournette, Week 1 style with the Bucs.
The only thing I'll say about that is we knew it coming into the season. That's like the one thing that we were able to pinpoint for sure, and that was that the tight ends were lackluster, and they were going to be lackluster. And the reason we said that was that none of them were dynamic enough to make a bunch of plays down the field. Now, they've gotten something from him in the receiving aspect of the position, not a lot, but some. But none of them blocked real well, and so we're still waiting on that. But this has to do with team building. This has to do with when you're going through a transition. You don't get all at once better in the areas that you want to be. It takes time. It takes recruiting classes. It takes transfers. It takes all of the transfer portal guys. It takes all of that stuff. They've been able to remedy a lot of things. They've raised the floor considerably at a lot of positions. But I would say that is an area where they continue to really lack. They do not have that dynamic tight end. And if you look around the country, if you watch the best teams, the top 15 teams in the country, I'd say 13 of the 15 best teams in the country have a dynamic tight end, a guy that does something exceptionally well, be it block or receive. Some of those teams, those top 10 teams, tend to have guys that can do both pretty consistently. You just watch Georgia or you watch Michigan or you watch Ohio State, you watch these teams. I mean, they're really dynamic at the position. Florida State has a ways to go there. We're talking about being able to overcome some of those things. So, they've done it for the most part. They've been able to move the ball this year without the help of tight ends blocking. Tonight would be a night where you would just do it for the extra body to get somebody further away from the ball.
And that also gets back to offensively. What is the base formation going to look like? They ran a lot of empty against NC State. They ran a lot of outside zone as a running play against NC State. I don't think that's going to work. They're going to shoot those gaps and have no problem doing so. So
playing a counter as well.
I think counter is, but they went away from that in the second half, which I thought was interesting.
I think NC State shaded differently and stacked differently.
But outside zone, I don't think is the answer against that group. But we'll see. Anyway, whatever they do with what Clemson does defensively, we talked about that in the first hour of the program. Do they have 5 men in the box and really embarrass you? Do they have 6 men in the box and dare you? Or is it 7 and they play it true? We'll see. But that is also dictated somewhat by what Florida State is going to do offensively. And what is that personnel grouping going to look like? I think you can't go empty all that much against this group because you need the run in the RPO right next to Jordan Travis to be an occupier of space and bodies from Clemson. They got to be able to bite on that and believe that that's part of the fake. If you're just going to spread them out wide, I think they've got too much speed to the edges, especially if you're going to line a tight end up in 5 wide, because we don't run 5 wide with 5 receivers.
One thing to note, all week long, it was funny when we talked about how would you address it, how would you attack it, because it is difficult. We began to talk ourselves into doing 1 or 2 of the extremes, which was go 5 wide, get rid of that tight end, put real receivers out there, spread them out as far as you can, get it out of Jordan's hands very quickly so that you negate the pass rush, right? That you're able to get it out of his hands now. No long developing plays or anything like that. Make sure the receivers block for each other, all of that. All right. Well, that is one option. They could do that. I don't know that they'll do that, but they could. The other option is to, really, really try to go to great lengths to protect your offensive line and have all kinds of heavy personnel and hope like hell that, you're able to do it. But then you're asking a receiver to get open against 2 guys, and that's, I just don't think that's the answer either.
Well, some of the things that I've seen work against Clemson's defense are bunching closer together. Wake is pretty good at it.
Well, Wake does it really well. They get extremely close together.
They do. Well, and what that does is it creates leverages that you can jump on, but you've got to be incredibly decisive at quarterback and know exactly what you're looking at. And the problem is Clemson just got more dynamic at every level in this last week. They've got more dynamic. So they've got better players that they can put on islands. The other thing that Wake Forest did very well, the only time you see Clemson's grades look poor is their coverage grade against Wake Forest. Those receivers were so good.
There, though.
There were kids making one-on-one plays and drawing a pass interference. It felt like every 6th play they were drawing a pass interference call. So, do you want to take that route if you're Mike? Again, there are no great options here, but we're talking about the race being ideally to the mid to upper 20s. So it doesn't have to work every drive. And that's the thing when we talk strongly about the lines of scrimmage and things like that is, all right, it doesn't have to work every play. You just need to create enough explosive plays in order to put yourself in a position to get into that mid-20s mark, 24, 27. And that's something that this offensive staff was very good at last year, and they didn't have half the dynamic football players they do in this particular group with this offense in 2022.
Yeah, they got unlucky tonight in a sense that Clemson got all these guys back, and so you're having to deal with all of it. You know, those numbers that you alluded to with Clemson secondary against Wake was a mash unit, and they were playing freshmen at several places, and those kids did not handle the test well. Not only did they not handle the test well, they also committed a penalty on every other throw.
Yep.
So, you know, you're not going to get the benefit of that tonight. They get both safeties back. They get a starting cornerback. They get all of their defensive linemen back. So whatever you get tonight, you're going to earn. And, you know, I have a lot of faith in game planning offensively. I really do. I feel like they've done a good job in the last 2 years of finding a way to attack teams that have distinct advantages over them defensively. So I'm just intrigued because I don't think we know certainly we don't know the answer because we're not there on Thursdays.
Yep.
And then secondly, I don't know that I'd feel comfortable predicting with any degree of certainty either one of the extremes that we just mentioned. So, you know, Mike is innovative in that way. I think it's a strength of his. Alex has done a good job creating angles for his linemen.
Yeah, they've done more with less is the easy way to put it.
That is a much easier way to put it. You're right. Yeah, and they have. So that gives you hope. That's all I'm saying. That gives you hope where there otherwise wouldn't really be. If we were just talking about winning physically, man for man, we would be in for a long day.
Correct. But the one thing that Ira brought up I think is true, and if you're envisioning a path to victory today and you're watching this game on television, something that you would see is a highlight montage mashup of guys like Jared Verse and Patrick Payton dominating off of the edge. And they're saying they can't block these guys. Look at this. But between these two players through 30 minutes of football, 3.5 sacks, 5 tackles for loss. They've been everywhere tonight, and DJ's got nowhere to go. That's the one place where, again, I understand that Clemson is improved, but it doesn't make
on the offensive line.
On the offensive line. It doesn't make them world beaters on the offensive line, however. And a fully healthy Jared Verse makes a difference. He's a playmaker, point blank. And Patrick Payton in the last 3 weeks has come a long way. So maybe those two players off the edge can help reset things in terms of what Clemson feels comfortable running and how comfortable DJ is in general dropping back and throwing passes for Clemson. If that's the case, and you can do that, then this game does live at a lower scoring total between the two teams. And if it's 17 all in the third quarter because you've got defensive ends who are making hay against Clemson's offensive line, then you're in it. And at that point, it's just about making 1 or 2 plays.
It was interesting. Ira brought up their starting right tackle being a freshman, but he is a mauler. He's a guy that has been on highlight reels for just absolutely destroying guys. Unfortunately, he's got the makings of a superstar at right tackle. He's just a freshman for Clemson, but he is just a freshman, and this is a different atmosphere. And maybe, just maybe, Patrick Payton, who has come on really strong and is gaining confidence, is very quick. Maybe he has an advantage tonight. You're right. I think that is the path defensively to creating that big play that gets this place electrified and Florida State in the lead.
Yeah, the funny thing is, you know, you deep dive, you look at all the stats, analytics, and things like this, and they tell you stories, and they inform your opinions. But it's funny when they circle all the way back to the basics of football.
Can I beat you?
Yes. Can I beat you?
Can I beat you?
And also, for DJ, if you look at his numbers this year against the blitz, they're good. Yeah. Under pressure, not good. So w2hat's the difference there? That means if your front 4 can generate the rush and you drop 7 in coverage, then DJ is not going to perform nearly the same as he has the 14-2 touchdown interception ratio, the mid-60s completion percentage. No quarterback does. But this group, in terms of the defensive lines that Clemson has seen this year, you're going 4 wide here. It's not a 3. I mean, I understand that technically you could say it's a 3 down lineman look in some plays. But this is as talented a group, edge to edge, even without Fabian Lovett, that Clemson has seen this year, because their schedule ain't all world beaters. You had an odd front with NC State, an odd front with Wake Forest, but they didn't have a player like Jared Verse, and they don't have a player like Patrick Payton. So maybe that's the pathway here. But if Florida State has to blitz extra dudes against DJ, that's a recipe for failure as well. So hopefully the front 4 is what dictates it.
We'll check on the scoreboard here real quick again around the top 25, and we'll also get an update in recruiting. We obviously had a chance. Our own Michael Langston does such a good job covering the world of recruiting for Florida State. It's an area about finding players and getting guys to come in here and continue. Yeah, it's a big weekend. So we're going to play that for you in a moment. But let me get you updated here. Georgia blowing out Vandy 31-0 in the third quarter there. No problems. It's halftime between Tennessee and Alabama. That game is 28-20 at half. Alabama coming back. But Tennessee scored 28 first half points against this Alabama defense, but is saying some things.
So let me ask you, which fan base feels better at halftime at 28-20? Probably Alabama's, right?
Probably Alabama, because it was 21-7 and Tennessee was driving. So, yes.
28-10, too.
Yeah, so that's where we sit now. Oklahoma State 24, TCU 13. They just started the second half. It's an impressive season so far for Coach Gundy. Is they're 5-0, 2-0 in the Big 12, and got to sizable lead here against a good TCU team. Syracuse leads 10-6. 10-6 in the barn burner that we knew it would
fourth
be.
quarter?
It is late in the third. It's late in the third.
The number's 3.5. There you go, Vegas.
I hope you had the under. You had the under there. James Madison, top 25 team, surprisingly, 17-14, Georgia Southern, and one of my nieces is at that game. Really quickly, I will mention Michigan blew out Penn State today. Coach Franklin's road woes continue against ranked teams 41-17. That was a beatdown. Ole Miss beats Auburn 48-34. Neither team could stop each other. Oklahoma, Kansas, same thing, 52-42 in that football game. Oklahoma gets back to winning. Texas 24-21 over Iowa State. Illinois 26-14 over Minnesota. That's right, Illinois top 25 team garnering another win. So that's what we got going on around the world, college football top 25 teams and the scores. For the best game day apparel in Tallahassee and online, support Garnet and Gold for all your FSU fan needs. Garnet and Gold is locally owned and operated, and their owners are FSU graduates as well. Noles support Noles when they shop at Garnet and Gold. Warchant GameDay continues in a moment.
Something big, something huge is taking over the world of chicken sandwiches. Zaxby's new signature sandwich with Zax sauce or new spicy Zax sauce. Because the chicken sandwich war ain't over yet. The new signature sandwich, it's taking over. And it's only at Zaxby's.
Warchant.com has been the definitive home of all things FSU sports for over 20 years and is now part of On3, the next generation network. Warchant.com has the most experienced, tenured, and largest staff on the Florida State sports beat and now features innovative resources, including an NIL database that projects player value and a truly aggregated composite recruiting ranking system that will set the bar in the industry.
There are no words to describe the perfect pairing of Zaxby's hand-breaded fingers and our 12 delectable sauces. But there is a sound, and that sound is The Zaxby's Chicken Finger Plate with endless sauce abilities. Only at Zaxby's.
That's a great clip.
Betting advice during the break
we're
here
just talking
on
about
Warchant
gambling.
GameDay
Yes,
presented by Zaxby's.
It'll happen. It'll happen from time to time.
Don't gamble with your fast food. Go to Zaxby's.
There you go. Well done, sir. Well done. I would also tell you before we play Michael Langston's report from the week regarding recruiting that you could score a VIP fan experience at the FSU Florida game on Friday, November the 25th, courtesy of Bud Light and Tri-Eagle Sales. Text Bud Light Fan 22 to 855-297-9460 for a chance to win sideline passes, hospitality passes, 2 tickets to the game, plus Bud Light and FSU fan gear. That's Bud Light Fan 22 to 855-297-9460. Make your football season epic with Bud Light. Must be 21 years of age or older in order to enter. For complete contest rules, visit trieaglesales.com. All right, so Michael Langston covers recruiting for Warchant.com, does a great job with it. Our lead recruiting analyst, if I could speak. And
been there for a minute.
Yeah, he has. And it's a big weekend, like you said. At the start of the year, we were all excited about what was happening with recruiting, and Florida State nabbed a couple of big names. They had a really good week early on. Mm-hmm. Got a receiver that's a 5-star. Got a linebacker out of California that I love.
That wasn't that long ago either.
No, and by the way, I think he's the kid that comes in and plays almost immediately. He's Nicholson. Yeah, he's a real athlete. So anyhow, those were exciting times. But we really haven't had a chance to update too much as of late. And we still have a second half of the season to play. We've got a high-profile game tonight, followed by a bye where they can get after the visit, getting out there.
This is also just a real quick where a night kick matters no matter what the result is because the kids see the atmosphere. If this was a nooner against Clemson because the day's action was just slated and that's where we fit, it wouldn't feel the same. So when you're trying to impress kids with what it looks like and sounds like and feels
what
like,
it can be,
I'm glad it's a night kick for that reason because there are a ton of blue chippers here this weekend.
Yeah, so let's listen to Michael Langston. He produced a video earlier this week for us on site and gives you an update right now. This is Michael Langston talking about recruiting for Florida State.
Rod Kearney commitment, but that commitment may be a little bit under scrutiny these days. He's an in-demand young man. I don't blame him for playing the game if that's what he's doing. How vital is it, though, that he's choosing to do an official to Florida State on a game weekend of this magnitude?
I think it's huge because, and I think it was a smart move by FSU because originally he was just going to do it in December, do official visit. But it's very calculated. I mean, Florida has their last biggest home game against LSU. It's a big, obviously FSU's got a big game against Clemson. This is the last game that I think Florida can get top prospects for. So to get a guy like Roderick and kind of take away that buzz of what Florida would get maybe for that game against LSU, I think it's a big deal. And two, Roderick's going to come back for the Florida game, so you're still going to get him there. And he's close enough where you can get a visit here and there if you need to squeeze one in. So I think it's a very calculated and smart move, and certainly a big visit to kind of ease things to make sure everything's on a good place.
All right. And then about Damari Brown, he's according to some of these prediction machines, if you will, a little bit maybe weighted towards Miami, a little bit closer to home for him. This, I assume, though, could go a long ways into maybe changing that.
Yeah, it's a big deal. Clemson's also a major target. He's a major target for Clemson. So I think Clemson, Florida State, Miami are the main teams in there. Early on, it was Miami, but they've really fallen some hard times as far as their team this year, losing to Middle Tennessee State, losing to North Carolina again last weekend. Their two wins are, I think, Southern Miss and Bethune-Cookman. So the door's kind of open for a South Florida prospect for FSU to really make a big splash. You win this weekend, it makes a big splash of recruits. We've seen that consistently with big games. Doesn't mean to equal a guarantee of a commitment, but it really would have FSU surging in a good direction. Yes, he is. He will be there. Unofficial visit. He's tweeted a few times about coming. Even I think when Damari Brown put a tweet out about him officially visiting, he's like, "I'll see you there." Yeah, he's definitely going to be there. Hakeem Williams will be there.
We have lots of questions from AJ Perry. Hopefully he's not stealing all of our information and running it to his fan blog. But how would you evaluate CJ Turner? Do we know this guy?
Yeah, he was originally actually going to visit for the Boston College game earlier this year. Transportation, whatever, fell through. This weekend he's supposed to be there again. Athletic linebacker. I think he's comparable to stuff that DeMarco Ward does when you watch him athletically. Can get to the ball. Instincts are good. Certainly is around the football. 3-star prospect on 3. But I think he's a guy that's he's always been intrigued by FSU, and they've certainly kept in contact with him just to keep just to see where the relationship goes. I don't think they're pushing per se, because I think if they want one more linebacker, it's going to have to be somebody that's very elite, that they consider very elite. So you can watch some of these highlights of him, but I think he's a guy that they've really stayed in constant contact with. I'm assuming that's him running the ball. So
that's the arrow pointed at him, so we'll assume it as well.
Yeah, so a little bit of offensive stuff, but more so a guy that's really good tackling in space. That's what he does, and pretty good wheels for a big guy. Not blazing fast, but also not slow either. But I think he intrigues the staff, and I think they want to see more of him and build a relationship. And then maybe if everything goes good, then you could see something happen with him down the line as far as official visit. But I think they're kind of feeling it out right now to see kind of just how serious his interest is in Florida State, but it's definitely a guy they're intrigued by.
More from the AJ Perry hour here. Wilkie Denaud, Anthony Miller. Takes, question mark?
They're not takes right now.
What?
No, they're not right now. Anthony Miller is a guy they're intrigued by. He worked out at Seminole Showcase. What exactly blew you away type of workout, but they've stayed in contact. They're still watching him to see how the season goes, and then kind of go from there. And then Wilkie's committed to Auburn. Obviously, he was very high on FSU. FSU was his leader a lot during the process, but it was never a situation where I heard like FSU. He's definitely a definite take, but they're right on the edge of it, on the crisp of it, as far as maybe being a take. And I was always told, like, if they take a 4th defensive end, it would be somebody that they consider elite. So I think this is more keep building a relationship, and they've seen him a few times in games. So I think there is certainly excitement and intrigue, but I have not heard he's for sure take. But certainly him visiting this weekend tells you a lot about how he feels about FSU. As I said, FSU was his leader. So if they push, I like their chances for a flip. But really, that's what we're waiting on to see if there's a push. But right now, I wouldn't consider him a take at this stage, but that's what I'm kind of eyeing to see if FSU turns up the heat there.
What about a kicker, man?
Yeah, that's the most popular question. I tell you, we don't hear about Dustin Hill anymore. We hear about kickers. So we got a few kickers coming in. We got a youngster from most of them are 2024. They got a youngster from Childs coming in that they'll have on campus. That's coming in again this weekend. Bobby Inksler. I hope I said it right. I think he's out of Childs. That he's coming in. They have another kid out of Charlotte Christian. Trip Woody is another one, but they're 2024 kids. Nobody 2023 that they're pushing hard. Like, because I tried to explain this to people. Like, when you're talking about a kicker, you only get one scholarship for that guy. So if you're taking a kicker, that dude better be elite. That dude better be really damn good, and you got to be sure on that guy because like I said, you only get one. This isn't like quarterback or receiver where you can get 5 or 6 or 7 guys in your team that has a scholarship. You got to be sure on these guys, and I think the more suitable or more accurate would be if they decide to go out the kicker. I think it would be from the portal, where you get somebody from the portal and then say transfer portal, or if somebody jumps out to them that's just so elite that they offer scholarship, but there's nobody so far that's scholarship worthy that I feel so far that they're going after.
Good news on DJ. Assume Chester.
Yeah.
O-line question mark.
Yeah. DJ Chester, I'm assuming that's who Tom's talking about. But yes, he's coming in again for another visit. It's going to officially visit FSU, and he told me around December, or right before, I guess, the early signing period. So, both of those things are good signs. Certainly getting them back for a big game is a big deal. Atkins has a really long-standing relationship with there. I think FSU's trending in a positive direction. I wouldn't say good news because good news means he's going to commit. Obviously, the RPM doesn't favor them, but that was early on. I think with that RPM, I think FSU is certainly a team that he's very high on. He didn't go out there and tell me like FSU's a clear leader, but I feel like FSU's slightly ahead of LSU now. I personally feel just the relationships. He's visiting FSU more. They're gonna get the last official visit or certainly an official visit over. I think he's already taken one to LSU. So getting a last official and then having him on campus multiple times already for games is a big deal. So it's certainly trending in a positive direction.
What current commits have you seen improve most year over year? I guess from this class, anybody that you saw maybe a year ago that you've seen him now here recently, they're like, all right, this guy's cooking with gas now.
I would definitely say Dre Jacobs because, last year it was kind of flashes of what he's doing now, but now it's consistently every week. He's so good after the catch now. He was always fast, but I think now it's just all coming together as a complete receiver. Just so explosive. I think he has dude's 11 touchdowns already for I want to say six games or something. I mean, the dude has been absolutely unreal. He's the one that jumps out the most to me. If I was picking a guy, it would be Dre. I mean, Dre has just tore it up as far as for Vero Beach. I don't know why they still have Fort Pierce Westwood. He plays for Vero Beach, but the Vero Beach Indians, I think. So he's really tore it up for Vero Beach, and that's the guy that I think's done the best. I think he should be a consensus 4-star. Not even that. I think he should be in the 150 range as far as total rank. I think this kid's a game breaker in every sense of the word. I mean, you watch his games. I mean, the guy is always every game he's having 30 plus catches. His yard per catch is really high, and he's a more consistent playmaker this year, and that's really jumped out to me about Dre.
Something big, something huge is taking over the world of chicken sandwiches. Zaxby's new signature sandwich with Zax sauce or new spicy Zax sauce. Because the chicken sandwich war ain't over yet. The new signature sandwich, it's taking over. And it's only at Zaxby's.
Warchant.com has been the definitive home of all things FSU sports for over 20 years and is now part of On3, the next generation network. Warchant.com has the most experienced, tenured and largest staff on the Florida State sports beat, and now features innovative resources, including an NIL database that projects player value and a truly aggregated composite recruiting ranking system that will set the bar in the industry.
There are no words to describe the perfect pairing of Zaxby's hand-breaded fingers and our 12 delectable sauces. But there is a sound, and that sound is The Zaxby's Chicken Finger Plate with endless sauce abilities. Only at Zaxby's.
Warchant GameDay rolling on here as we broadcast still from Hotel Indigo and feel the wrath of the mighty sun as we do it atop Hotel Indigo. But the good news for you, if you're going to visit, is that there's an indoor area for you to watch the game and to enjoy the air condition.
Full bar.
Yeah. Whole kit and caboodle there. Florida State, one area that we did not discuss in this game that we think could be interesting. I remember you and I talking about it when the shoe was on the other foot, when Clemson was the team that was trying to knock off mighty Florida State, and they had a long losing streak to the Noles, and it seemed like it was going to take them an awful long time to kind of get to where we were. Unfortunately, these are different days where we're the one trying to catch up to Clemson and knock them off for the first time in a long time. But the descriptions about those games are similar in that we used to say Clemson's going to come in here with nothing to lose, and they're going to do all kinds of tricks and gadgets and things like that. Well, they don't have to do that anymore. They can play it straight up. But we do. We might have to. And you know what? This could be fun because I would imagine they'll dial a few of those up tonight.
Yeah, I mean, they certainly have them. Started the season with the flea flicker out in Louisiana.
I'm not a flea flicker.
And I would imagine that they have some other tricks up their sleeves. Mike has been that kind of a coach anyway. Even when his teams are good, he likes guys to be loose and have fun. And that's one of the things. Yeah, you take it back 10 years. I can't believe it's been 10 years already, but that was the night that Chad Morris, the offensive coordinator for Clemson, came in here and befuddled Mark Stoops through 2 quarters. And there was a famous interaction between head coach Jimbo Fisher and Mark Stoops, in which on the sidelines, Jimbo said,
I got you, buddy.
Figure it out. We're going to score a ton. As long as you figure it out a little, we're going to be okay. And that game was a race to the 40s. Clemson never got there. We did. But tonight, the shoe is on the other foot a little bit, especially if you can't generate stuff early. You don't want to come out of the gate running a gadget or a trick play. You want to see, hey, maybe they're not fully engaged tonight. Yeah, exactly. Maybe we find something that nobody else has seen because they have to account for Jordan Travis, a running quarterback, as well as these receivers. You know, Clemson has only seen one quarterback that can really move, and that's Jeff Sims. And I'm talking about Power 5 opponents.
Yeah.
And they don't have the offensive line or the running backs or the receivers to go with him. We have a much more balanced offensive attack, even if Trayshawn Ward, who was taking selfies in hospital garb this week, is unable to play. If you've got a Toafili and Benson and young Rodney Hill, who I'm really excited to see tonight, and then those receivers out on the edge, you've got to scheme for that a little bit differently if you're Clemson than if you're scheming for a running quarterback and Jeff Sims and nothing else. So it'll be interesting to see, and I would think those first few plays are going to be basic RPOs or quick options for Jordan to say, where are they weak? Where are the numbers few? Let me go attack with greater numbers where they're at 3 against 2 or 2 against 1.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, screens, draws, and then, you'll incorporate those things tonight, obviously, to try to keep them honest and use their speed against them, as they say. A lot of misdirection. I think that'll be a core part of what you do if you're trying to run or, obviously the underneath stuff of the screens. But it will be fascinating to see what is the basis for their offense. We talked about it all night. And when do they pull the trigger on the tricks that we're talking about? Because I think you will see 2 or 3 of them tonight. I think it's worth a go, unless, of course, everything's working and you don't have to fall back to it. But that would really be the shock of the evening. Everything is working according to plan without Clemson's defense interrupting most of those plays. And I just don't see that happening.
If you could devise up, not the ideal, because the ideal would be finding a way that Florida State wins this game comfortably, but the right mix of Jordan Travis passing yardage and rushing yardage tonight, what would that look like in order for you to believe, oh, man, they got a chance?
205 in the air.
Wow, that light. Okay.
120 on the ground.
Okay.
For him.
Your hope is that this is, but 205 in the air.
Yeah.
So your hope is that this is 27-24, 28-24, something along those lines. Because those numbers don't scream 38-35.
No, and I don't think we can get there. So that's why I'm predicting that if we do win, it will be because you get a big stop on defense, maybe a red zone stop or two, create a turnover, and then you don't turn the ball over on your side of it. You're conservative, but not conservative in the way that it hamstrings you in your own end, but you're able to move the ball foot field position like we're talking about with some of the things that we're talking about. I think that you got to hope somebody breaks one or Jordan breaks a long run and gets you in a position to cash in with some points. This is where it would be nice to know if you're trying to win a game 27-24 or 24-21 or something like that. This is where it would be nice to know that you could count on Fitzy to go in there and make a couple of kicks in the red zone. And maybe he does. Look, last week, kid made 2 extra points and a field goal. He only saw the ball go through the uprights. Maybe he's fixed. I don't know. I mean, maybe he is. It's not something you would predict. It's not something you project to happen, but he might be. It is a confidence issue.
Yeah, the kicks I saw him make this week were, right down the middle and nuclear in terms of the power. So maybe they had one block, but that doesn't have anything to do with him. That's a protection issue. So we'll see. You're going to need it. You're going to need all systems go. Mastromano can't be as bad as he was against NC State, too. That matters.
Maybe his worst game of his career. Yeah. I think it probably was the worst game of his career. And it gets overlooked a lot because of some of the other things that happened in that game. But he was terrible. I'm not even talking about past the line of scrimmage, deciding to punt, which was idiotic. I'm talking about, just his punts in general were terrible. He's forgotten about being Mr. No Touchback and everything else. I mean, that has gone away. It is. Now it's always a touchback if it gets there.
So if the offense is rolling on a first down and it's 2nd and 2, do you go tempo? I think the answer is yes. Your best bet at making consistent drives happen against Clemson is if you do so with speed.
God, it's so dangerous to run tempo, not because of what can go wrong in the play, but how quickly your defense is back out there if it goes south. And I get it, and I hear you, and I'm for it, but
you can't think about it that way, though. Yeah, you got to think about I've got to take the points that are in front of me or the opportunity to score points that are in front of me. And if that means that, it's an explosive drive and, one of our scoring drives is 6 plays and 65 yards in 1:30, then so be it. I can't get cute because that's one thing we saw against NC State. A couple of things about this offense this year, but number one for the NC State game, they took that play clock down inside of 10 seconds routinely. It was almost like they wanted to have the last move on the chessboard before the ball was snapped. I don't know that that's us.
Well, it was that night because we didn't think we could block them.
Yeah.
I mean, that really, I don't, and also that's a very unique look. It's a 3-3-5. Clemson does not run that. I don't think we'll really see it again.
That tells you how little confidence they had in the offensive line's ability to sort things out after the snap.
100% correct. And you can kind of understand that. I don't like it. You don't like it. It's not ideal. But it's kind of where they're at.
The one thing I'd say is it almost feels like to me, and this is neophyte football talk now, it makes your offensive linemen worse because they got to be in their stance for 25, 30 seconds. And now
it's tough.
You're taking guys who don't move very quickly and you're putting cement in their shoes as you're waiting.
Yeah, it wasn't ideal. And maybe that was what Jordan was responding to as well. By the way, so we look at the rest of the way. Obviously, tonight's game, it's the 15th of October, 7:30 at night, Bill Campbell Stadium. Clemson is here. But you get the bye week after this game, and then you go to Georgia Tech. I mean, you play Georgia Tech here. But then you're on the road for 2, one against Miami, one against Syracuse. Syracuse looking good again today, up 17-6 over North Carolina State currently in the fourth quarter. Louisiana, and then you conclude the season, obviously, with the University of Florida here on the 25th on a Friday night game. It'll be interesting, the tale of the fan base and of these players and coaches and mindset and what's possible and what this season ends up becoming, the way we describe it, the way we talk about this moment in program building, which is, Mike's, short of falling to pieces here. Mike is back next year, and the program's moving forward. I am curious. It is so funny. If they pull what I believe would be a very surprising upset tonight, all of a sudden you begin to talk about, without question, winning 9 games, maybe 10.
Yeah.
You really do.
Because your roster is going to be healthier for the next wave, assuming that Florida State's injury luck changes a little bit tonight and 10 more dudes don't go down for injury stoppages.
Don't say it. But in addition, if you lose it, I just want to reiterate, and I'm not trying to get out in front of the walls. I'm just noting, because I believe this before the game even starts, that if you lose to a team that's favored to come in here and beat you and has better players, there's no shame in it. Don't get blown out.
Yeah.
But there's no shame in losing to a team that has better players and controls the line of scrimmage. What are we the second half of the season, and what does this game have to do with it?
Just in general, I don't know that it has
I'm talking about mentally. Do you think they're beyond it? Is what I'm asking you. So it doesn't really to me. If they lose this game,
I think they're dangerous in the second half, no matter what.
I agree, and that's another thing that's different. I just wanted to shed light on something that is different. That this is a team that we're talking about in that scenario, Tom. A team that would have lost 3 games in a row, and we're like, that's okay. They'll be okay. We would have never said this about some of the other teams the last 3 years.
Yeah, you'd say, "Oh no, this might be the moment that they pack it in."
Yes.
No, I just the thing that it's tough and it's a pall that hangs over today a little bit is just you let that one go. That was a freebie you gave back to the football gods last week, and if you got it, then you'd believe even more than you do right now. But we saw questions throughout the week in the chat about, are they still bought in? Well, yeah, of course they are, and I think to your point here. It's kind of a ridiculous question because if they were going to say no, they were going to do it at 0-4 last year. But they came back and they were competitive in every game with a wider
5-3 over the last 8. Sure.
Well, a wider talent disparity in 4 of those games last year than they've had in any game this year in terms of us not being nearly as good as the opponents. So if they were going to do it, it would have been then, not now. They're continuing to practice well. I'll tell you, this week in practice, Johnny Wilson looked fantastic. And, of course, he's got to be more consistent on the field. But you wonder if a player like that, after a performance like that, looks like he's thinking a little bit and pressing in practice and getting technical and things like that. Nope. He bounced back. And for what I saw Tuesday and Wednesday, he's the best player on offense this week in practice.
I also think it's really important. We got a touchdown Tennessee here. Tell me that's touchdown Tennessee. Yep. All right. There we go. Folks up here at Hotel Indigo giving me – I can't see. It's brighter than hell over here. I can't see anything. There it is. Thanks, guys. Thank you. Tennessee has just taken the lead over Alabama, 34-28 with an extra point coming up.
Yeah.
We were talking about the buy-in and this team and what they are and all that. Man, Florida State's completely flipped the culture. Yeah. There is no worrying about anything after this game. They win it by 10, lose it by 30. I'm not worried about – 30 might be a bit extreme.
But do you see that happening?
I don't see it happening. I'm not telling you it's going to happen.
Blown out tonight.
No. We had the conversation on the Jeff Cameron show. We do this all the time. If somebody's going to blow somebody out, we both agree it would be Clemson.
That's the likelihood. I told you I feel strange, though. There's something weird today. Either way.
I don't like that you feel strange. You're worried about me. I'm worried about you.
Yeah.
The fact that you feel strange concerns me because I think you're more apt these days to buy in to what this is and where this is headed.
It's not necessarily negative. It's just we've had so many games that have been pretty close down the stretch.
Yeah,
Boston College, Duquesne notwithstanding. This just doesn't feel like that. I just feel like something.
Hey, everybody, Ira said it. You brought it up. I brought it up. I think most of us, I think the fan base feels this way. I think most of us realize you're going to have a real good idea early tonight. Just exactly whether or not this is going to be a close game into the second half.
Because he's right. They were flat the first half on Tuesday. And I walked over to him on the sideline. I said, does this feel a little? He goes, yeah. I didn't even finish my sentence. So does this feel a little?
That was a tough loss, man. It was a tough loss. Now, I don't begrudge them that. I mean, as long as you got it together the rest of the week.
No, the final 10 periods of that practice, it was, never mind. I looked at him. I said, never mind. He goes, yep, I agree.
So, again, we're ridding ourselves of culture conversation because we know that they're fine and that they'll buck up and be ready to play these games, the remaining schedule, Georgia Tech, Miami, Syracuse, Louisiana, and Florida. I think the bigger question and really what has to happen is you got to get healthy. And this tonight, we'll see how healthy they are. I'm crossing my fingers. You want to talk about a mood improver. If I look out there and I see Zero warming up, okay, well, now we're having a different conversation. Now, all of a sudden, you got a real shot to make this fascinating because I think he is, as good as they are, as good as they have, certainly, in the ACC at defensive tackle. He's maybe not the best, but he's certainly top 3.
If you could get him out, and it wouldn't be a shocker to me, and I'm not saying that because of inside intel. It's just you've had other players this year who looked like they had no shot to play, and they found a way to get on the field.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the one thing is that Jared Verse was captured on Warchant TV on Wednesday in the warm-ups with pads on, and I don't know that Fabian Levitt was captured on Warchant TV on Wednesday with pads on.
He wasn't.
So that's one thing. But Maurice Smith played, and we all went, really? Maurice Smith's going to play? And
you're talking about way back when.
But I'm talking about precedent of, look, they might be hiding something for Thursday. I think that's overblown. Who cares if, tell the world that Fabian's going to play. I don't think that it makes that much of a difference.
Clemson's not changing their game plan.
No, exactly right. But if he's out there and if he could be on a pitch count the way that the Wake Forest game was for Jared Verse, then use him in early downs. Use him in short yardage situations, 3rd and 1s, 3rd and 2s, or goal-to-go situations. That's when you want him out there. He doesn't have to play every down. It would make a huge difference. But we should also note that Joshua Farmer has had a nice sequence here these last couple of weeks. We talked about Patrick Payton a lot for what he did against NC State. But Farmer was challenged after the BC game when he looked okay. And after the Louisville game, certainly, where I think there were some loafing issues, personally. That's my own take on rewatching the game. But since about second quarter of the BC game to present, he's been pretty good. And he can't be your frontline weapon in the interior.
No.
But if you could get Fabian back in those early down situations, and then maybe some of the other guys are on pitch counts as well, because they're all banged up and down that depth chart. If Farmer's next to Fabian and you got Jared on one end, that's a really good start to setting the line of scrimmage against a team like Clemson.
The Shipley attack, this is what you'll see from Clemson tonight. I think they'll line up and run the football early on. That's a great recipe when you're on the road to take fans out of the game, is to run the football effectively. You eat up clock, you keep the opposing offense off the field, you wear a defense who's dealing with injuries down. Yep. I think that's the game plan for Clemson tonight. So when I say we'll know early, very early, where we stand, I'm not talking about first drive, but I'm talking about first quarter.
Yeah, it's
if you're able to get stops early on against the run game, this could get interesting because that's where Jared Verse pins his ears and gets after the quarterback. And I think they have to produce something of a strip sack, maybe a scoop and score or some sort of.
Well, the results matter, but as long as they're not scoring touchdowns on every drive, it's also the compete level, because that tells you how healthy they are. So I think that's going to be part of it too. It's not, they could be down 10-3 at the end of the first quarter. Hey, we made a kick. If you're down 10-3 at the end of the first quarter, but you see that they're competing their asses off and they're winning some battles in the offensive line.
Got to win some of those. Got to win some of those, though. That's really the thing.
We have somebody to thank here too. Z-Chan from the top
My
rope.
man.
He's apparently in Orlando today at Disney. I'm sure he's baking down there, but he says he's gotten a ton of Go Noles today at Disney. Y'all cheer loud and let's get the big upset. So that message is to all you Warchant fans out there. Thank you, Z-Chan. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Z-Chan. You're always great, and we appreciate your support. It is unwavering, that support. Yep. And, if you are able to produce one of those surprises early in the game and create for yourself a scoop and score moment or a pick six or something along short field after a big play,
yep.
I do think when that crowd comes alive, you'll see this team play, at least for a little while, maybe a bit above their heads. That's what a home field advantage is. They bake it into the line, by the way, for that very reason, 3.5, depending on where you're playing. So they basically are telling you this week, as we got closer to the game, that they think Clemson is a 7-point favorite on a neutral field.
Yeah, and again, it comes back to we're focusing on the offense because it's been disappointing in this 2-game stretch against ranked
and they're
opponents.
going against a really good defense.
And they're going against a really good defense, but it's about what does Vegas think of Clemson's offense? They don't think very much of them, to have this number this close, because yes, the efficiency numbers for DJ, I did a deep dive on them. They're quite good this year. And there's a misnomer based upon last year's reputation about what DJ Uiagalelei is. Boom, that'll be my one and only try.
Uiagalelei.
That's right. There you go. 2 for 2. We're done here. But they can't love him that much if they've got the number within 4 or 5 points.
Yeah, I think they're wrong. I think he's played really well. I think he's played well above whatever that perception is. That is a hangover from last year. All of that, whether that's Vegas, fans. I listen to our fans talk about him as like he's a bum. And you've done the film. He's good. He's a good football player.
He has bum moments, but those are outliers.
I hope he has a ton of them tonight. Yeah. I hope he's garbage tonight so that we can celebrate. Wouldn't that be wonderful? But he hasn't been coming into this game.
Last year they were the norm. Him being timid.
Yeah, unsure of himself, second guessing.
He's
patting the ball.
Huge facet in their run game as well. They like to run read option, but it's about the most physical read option you could see, because Will Shipley's not afraid, Maffa's not afraid, and of course neither is DJ, and he's smart enough to know, in many circumstances, not all, but smart enough to know that if you're cheating on Shipley or one of the tailbacks, then he can just keep the ball, and you got to really work to get him down, because even though he's slimmed by 20 or 25 pounds, that frame is huge.
This is, we haven't brought it up, but, if he's going to carry the ball, you got to remind him you're there. This could be a night where echo of the whistle, finish the play.
I mean, what's the difference? It's not to the echo of the whistle. You hit a guy on the seatbelt line and you get flagged for it. So what's the difference?
Yeah, no, I know. And
that would make me more reckless as a player, not less reckless.
Yeah, go ahead and let let it ride here tonight, guys. You got to send messages, because I will tell you this. That's one of the things that Clemson does very well is they hit you, and they're there to remind you. And so, Jordan, we talk a lot today on this show about him needing to run the ball. He needs to get down. He needs to get down. This is not your typical defense. So, Ira brought that up last hour. I think he's right. I think run him, get down.
Well, we talked about this, and Wake made some plays that, were just – they felt like they were lucky, but they do them so often that they can't be. For example, the catch for the touchdown on Renardo Green. What more can you ask from your defender?
Great throw and catch, and he's in position. It's just a nice play.
Wouldn't you say it's fair that Florida State's secondary outperformed your expectations against Wake's receivers before that game kicked off? Is that fair?
Yeah, I think it's fair.
Okay. So you take that performance, you compound it with NC State doesn't have good receivers, not top to bottom the way that Wake does.
No.
How many coverage sacks or coverage pressures were there last week against Devin Leary? A lot in that first half.
Yeah, a ton. In the first half, especially, yeah.
Patting the ball. Have we improved? Tonight, you're going to find out if we have, because DJ will take those shots, and he's cold-blooded about it. He will take the shots outside the numbers down the sideline.
You know what I find fascinating? We talked a lot about Renardo Green and the good season that he's had, and unfortunately the disappointing season that Duke Cooper has had, but I know you don't roll kids out in the biggest game of the year against the most talented team you're going to face. I talked this week about maybe the need to see Julian Armella at some point. I'm really more alluding to the second half of the season, starting him against maybe Georgia Tech or something like that. But what about AZ? What about Azaria Thomas, who is getting more rep, getting more run now? He's out there for more plays. He's long. He's confident. He looks like he's back to feeling good about where he sits on the depth chart right now. So
I'll tell you a play I saw on Scout Team on Tuesday. And again, it's Scout Team, so you're not going against world beaters. But they're working on some of the shots down the field, as the tape would suggest that DJ will take.
Mm-hmm.
And you're talking about hip pocket coverage. It was a target of maybe 30 yards down the field inside the 10-yard line. I'm standing right there. I had to get out of the way or else AZ would have killed me. And his coverage was so perfect in his technique that Adam Fuller ran over, congratulated him, gave him a pat on the butt, and said, "That's what I'm talking about."
Well,
it's just a moment against Scout Team. It's an isolated moment, but Adam doesn't run over to a lot of dudes and congratulate them. So, and they've talked about it on the record, not just these moments of practice, but Mike has talked about it. Coach Norvell and Coach Fuller have both said his time is coming. He's earning more and more trust. So this might be the night. And I agree with you. I'm not worried about him the way I would be worried about a freshman in the trenches against a group like Clemson.
Well, right, yeah.
You're expected to fail to some degree against Clemson's weapons. It's not as big of a drop-off if you get burnt a couple of times, as opposed to an offensive lineman being physically manhandled by a defensive edge or edge rusher or something along those lines. So I'd give him some chances tonight for sure.
Really quick before we break and come back and give you our predictions for the game, a little Who's Hot, Who's Cold brought to you by Barano Heating and Air Conditioning. Turn to the experts at Barano Heating and Air Conditioning to make your home and fan cave the ideal temperature today. Online at baranoac.com. Patrick Payton gets my
absolutely.
hot right now. Cold is still the kicker, although he was 3 for 3. I'll take him off the list.
There you go. Cold is the drops.
Yeah, the receivers dropping footballs. Yeah, that was a really easy one today. They can't be cold tonight. The weather's perfect, and they got to show up. Huge. But Patrick Payton, if you can carry it over and you got bookends, all of a sudden you might have a little something. So let's hope he stays hot.
This is an abstract hot, but I'm going for it. Rodney Hill.
This is a hopeful hot.
This is the war, not the battle. The battle is tonight, and he may not look great tonight. Who knows? Maybe he doesn't get a ton of touches.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, in practice this week, he got a lot of exposure with the upper groups.
They like him, and he plays well every time I'm at practice. So that's a kid that when he plays tonight, I think he'll play well. I don't think the moment will be too big for him.
He does certain things that are innate to good to great players.
Yeah, he's got vision.
He's also got more density to his body type than you think in terms of the way, and this is how I read it. It's much like Dalvin back in the day. When you're
guys
saying
bounce off him
for the third week in a row, these guys suck at tackling. No, at some point it's that Dalvin is just somehow denser or tougher to bring down. And Rodney's not there yet. He's not an upperclassman's body yet. But you see some of that already. And his 0 to 60, the jump cut ability, look, he could have 4 touches tonight and maybe have 9 rushing yards. But I guarantee you, at least once, if he gets a handful of touches, you're going to go, oh, that's going to work at least soon, if not tonight, because he can get you out of a tackle in the backfield and get you a gain of 3. And that's a 5-yard difference here in 2nd and 7. He already can do that. He can catch the football. He's smart enough. He understands most of his pass protection stuff. Again, it's a big ask for a freshman running back to play against a group like Clemson's. But the reason I think that that's a hot player is because you're going to enjoy him by the time his career is over at Florida State, a really good football player.
Running back's a position that you can come in and play right away. We've seen freshmen do it, work done. Others, I mean, I'm not saying he's work done, but there are guys that come in at that position. If they have instinct, if they have vision, if they understand how to get out of the bad habit that they had in high school of bouncing everything outside because they were always the fastest guy on the field, if they get past that, you can contribute right away. You're not going to ask him to carry the load tonight. You're going to ask him to be good for 5 plays. Can he be good for 5 plays? I think he can.
And if he surprises early, then
maybe
run him out there
7
for 10.
plays, or 10 plays, whatever it might be. The other guy to look at tonight, because he's back from injury, he's got healthy legs, Ja'Kai Douglas. Now, a lot of people love Ja'Kai more than I do. I think he's a tiny target.
I'm one of them.
I'm not a big fan of having to throw the ball to him. But you roll him out of there, any of that wheel route stuff that we've seen from him in the past, yes, he can make a difference. He is fast. If you can put it on him, he can make a play.
You don't have a slot receiver or a back that runs like him. Toafili last year in this game against Clemson has the memorable play, and then that's isolating. That's getting a matchup because Toafili is really fast. But Ja'Kai is on a different level of speed. And I'm not telling you that means he's going to be a game breaker. I'm just saying that if you line him up in the slot, that's different than lining Micah Pittman up in the slot. Micah Pittman is a stronger player.
Very strong.
And good hands, and he's got ability to separate with route running. Ja'Kai is shot out of a cannon, and he looked fresh this week. So if you've got gadgets for him or if you've got isolations that you want to try and see if you can get to pre-snap where he's on a linebacker or a safety, he is worth making a part of this game plan because you need guys who are sudden against Clemson. I mean, they don't wait. You look at that defensive line.
It's really quick,
Even without Brazee and Thomas, when the ball is snapped, those dudes are coming 100 miles an hour, and it's a different thing. Even within 5 plays, you'll notice, man, these guys are ridiculously fast. And they'll run twists and games off of it, and that's where it just becomes a nightmare. So you, in turn, as an offensive player, Jordan Travis or Ja'Kai or whoever, you can't be waiting. And we do a lot of waiting by nature in our offense. You can't wait. It's got to be now, and Ja'Kai Douglas is one of those players.
He is pretty sudden real quick. Check it on the scoreboard. 41-0 Georgia leading Vanderbilt. Alabama's knocking on the door against Tennessee, but it's 34-28 Tennessee. Oklahoma State 30-16 over TCU. Wow. That game is in the fourth quarter. Syracuse 17-9 now, 17-9. 3 field goals for NC State today. Syracuse has the ball with the lead. 5 minutes to play in that football game. James Madison leads Georgia Southern 24-21. And a great game there in the third quarter. That is your top 25. Earlier today, Michigan 41-17 over Penn State. Ole Miss beat Auburn 48-34. Oklahoma over Kansas 52-42. The rest of the top 25, Texas over Iowa State 24-21, and Illinois 26-14 over Minnesota. Their game's still going on. I gave you some of those updates, so we shall see. Obviously, our game coming up not too far. Reminder here, by the way, I don't think we're going to step away just yet. We're going to stay and right to the end. Very quickly, tonight, you're involved, obviously. First half, I think you got first half?
I got second half.
Second half, watch along, get a little respite. Aslan will join D-Rob, and they will break down that first half. A little watch along action is always fun for those of you that can't make it to town. Be watching that. D-Rob's really, really good. Aslan's really, really good. It's fun watch. Tom will join him in the second half. And then after the game, for the reaction, let's hope it is a celebratory action. Let's hope there are some folks out there making some not so salubrious decisions and deciding to have a very, very good time and call into the postgame show to celebrate a magnificent win heading into the bye. Wouldn't that be a fun postgame show?
Buddy, that would be one that probably involves a shotgun of a natty again, I think.
Well, maybe more than once.
Yeah, maybe so.
I mean, that would be a time to celebrate with the people.
That would be one on the way out. That would be the second one. Is like the sign off is you do the shotgun and sign. I would love to do that tonight. Again, that's a different link for away games. It's all in one place. So this broadcast will end its transmission in just a few moments. And then you'll find a different link on Warchant TV. You know how you can help yourself with that? You hit the subscribe button to Warchant TV on YouTube. It's absolutely free. And then you hit the bell next to it. You'll be alerted every time we go live, and then you don't have to go hunting for us. So do us a favor to the nearly 400 of you out there. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and throw us a like as well. And one thing I want to note real quick, I haven't heard this before this broadcast from Hotel Indigo. You already can hear the crowd inside Doak. Did you hear a couple of those crowd surges?
Yeah, that's good.
That's a good sign. When they're early, that means they're going to be loud throughout.
Today's game predictions are brought to you by ABC Fine Wine and Spirits. Find an ABC Fine Wine and Spirits throughout the state of Florida and become an Access Rewards member today. All right, Tom. Moment of truth.
Yeah.
I already made my prediction earlier in the week, and I'm going to stick with it. Unfortunately, I believe Clemson gets it done tonight against Florida State 34-20.
Yeah, I don't.
I know, boo. Boo. It's okay.
You should.
Yes, you should.
Get ready to boost some more. I agree that it's a
bridge too far.
There's
buddy.
a lot to overcome, and I've been scouring the Warchant.com message boards because Ira and Corey are inside the press box right now.
Oh, give us an update.
None yet. The only lineman that they've seen so far, defensive lineman that is, are Robert Cooper.
Coop's out there.
Farmer, Ray, and McClendon. Check that. They have not seen Cooper yet, but it's Farmer, Ray, and McClendon. Now, that doesn't mean that the entire D-line's been out there. They're only going through initial warm-ups. So if I saw the name, love it is in pads, right? I saw that phrase, I'd say a little bit differently right now. But pending that, I think this is a game that unfortunately does not go the way of the Noles. And so therefore, we're at 4-3 into the bye week, and the score is something akin to 35-21.
So you're pretty much exactly where I'm at. Yeah. Wouldn't it be great if we were both fabulously wrong?
Oh, no. I mean, and there's a path to it. This is not as hopeless as an FSU Clemson game from 3 or 4 years ago. Hell, last year, I know we came close. We had the ball with 4 minutes to go and a chance to win that football game. You don't need miracles tonight like you needed last year. You just need to stop making mistakes situationally. And that's the other thing. It's part of the discussion, too. If you've shown in a game like Clemson that you're going to put together 8, 10, 12 little things that all add up to a loss, that's part of your identity until you shake it. So you can't do that. You can't do half of that tonight if you're going to beat Clemson.
Florida State needs to be nearly perfect tonight. I mean, there's no such thing as playing the perfect game. I've heard coaches talk about that in the past, that you pursue perfection in hopes that you find excellence. Yeah. So pursue it in hope that you find excellence, and that's all it would take maybe to get a win here tonight. I'm not saying they have to play way above their heads, but I do think it's kind of fundamental. And I keep getting back to this. If you're not the better team on the offensive line or the defensive line, it's a long day. It can be a long day unless Jordan Travis is truly special tonight, and he could be. I mean, he may be able to transcend what we've seen him do the last couple of weeks and reach a level in his game that we talk about for years from now. Remember that time Jordan Travis personally won against Clemson, at 150 yards rushing and 200 yards passing? I mean, maybe that happens because he is pretty special sometimes.
Remember Bobby Boucher? The Mud Dogs?
Yeah, I mean, it may be something like that, but I think it would have to be, is my point. Yeah. And it's hard to predict that.
I just think if you're looking at the lines of scrimmage, the good thing is that you're not comparing Florida State's defensive line to Clemson's defensive line in a combine contest. We lose that every day and twice.
No, but Sundays. I am comparing our offensive line against their defensive line.
But our defensive line against their offensive line, that's not a foregone conclusion that they win that battle. I don't think it is. Now I know you've got the look that says I think that is something they can handle.
No, you're right to look at that side of it and say we have a better chance there than we do on the flip side. I agree with that. And especially if versus 100% and then wreaking havoc in the pass game. And, if we're going to continue to see Patrick Payton continue to, step forward, hey, that'd be great. Then you're right. I worry about that interior if not everybody's healthy, though. And I'm going to be watching very closely here in a minute. Who's out there warming up? I don't suspect Fabian Lovett will be, but is it a healthy Robert Cooper or is he banged up? Is it Malcolm Ray? Is he healthy? Who's healthy out there? Because a lot of these guys are playing through a lot of things, and it's a hard game to win with Shipley as the running back and them testing you up front if you're not 100%.
Yeah, you know what? NC State didn't really do it in the first half, testing between the tackles. They did well. They were forced to, unfortunately, and they kind of found it by accident. Yeah. But I don't think Clemson's going to make that mistake.
No, I think they'll come in trying to do it.
Shipley to start the game is going to be
and DJ will run
player,
too,
and Maffa as well, and we'll see if we can hold up against it. Tatum Bethune looked really good last week, though, so there is that. That's as good as he's looked since he got banged up.
He was really, really good. Good work out of you, sir. Appreciate it as always. Our thanks to Ben back there producing as well, and to everybody here. Thanks to Hotel Indigo and all the fine folks that swung by and here on their way to a tailgate, having a good time. We always appreciate it. Again, stick around. New feed coming up.
Yep, 7:30.
Aslan and D-Rob will get after the in-game watch-along. That's a fun listen and watch. And then second half is you. Joining D-Rob as well, and then the post-game show. And then, of course, our guys that are in the box right now, Corey and Ira, will bring you the game stories and the post-game video wrap as well. Until next time, go Noles, and we'll talk to you again real soon.